And like in terms of keeping, it's hard to keep things off the internet because somebody could upload it while it's happening, and you don't know how many people are watching when something's happening, and people can like just like that AB guy
Oh my goodness.
keeps reproducing it.
Oh, yeah. So we just went live, and let's see. I just want to introduce everybody. It's myself, Jen, Ian, Courtney, Cherokee, and Tony. I did invite him on because he does have a lot to say. Um, and yeah, so right now we were talking about, or y'all can finish what y'all were talking about before.
Well, I think Tony should move the question.
Oh,
He left.
Tony left.
well, he can come back. He might have just accidentally.
Yeah. Well, so what Tony brought up was the issue regarding video 38 and the need to have it completely removed from the internet and taking whatever means is necessary to have it permanently removed, and whether that means that there's additional software that is created that would notify, you know, it would be a recognizable piece of software that would be able to predict and recognize those kinds of videos. And what we were talking about was that the sites that generally offer that video have been contacted, and they are in FCC compliance by having that video and many, many, many just like that. And it's a constant battle. As soon as we are notified that that video is on any kind of channel, there is a Facebook page that is dedicated exclusively to individuals who report it repeatedly. I mean, like, some of these people just sit there all day long and report to get it removed, and usually it's very effective, sometimes within like 10 minutes, sometimes it's taken up to 24 hours, but it generally is usually pulled from the site immediately.
Good.
But it's never going to be gone completely.
Yeah,
Once it's on the internet,
that was
it's
my
gonna
point.
stay.
Really, is that it's really hard to
Please,
keep something that's already on the internet off of the internet. It's really hard to permanently delete it, because how many times have we shared a link to the video popping up randomly at this random site and having to report it and take it down? How many times have we done that?
Mhm. Well, I think that when there starts to be legal ramifications, and my understanding is that Katelyn's mom has things in the works to start that action, and it might not be soon, but I think that once people start getting legal ramifications for that action, that maybe things will be a little bit more intimidating. But until then, you know, it's out there. It's out there, like everything's out there. You dig hard enough. I mean, look at postmortem photos. Who would have ever thought
Yeah,
that
I
you could
know.
get postmortem photos and you can really see anything, anywhere, anytime? It's
Yeah.
sad.
Terrible. Yeah.
didn't the police originally try and stop the video though? In January last year.
Yes, they did.
I wonder
But I
if
Too
think
late.
Yeah, and the
sorry.
police even said it. It's really hard to keep something offline whenever it's already been put out there.
like for example, if you look at all the celebrity sex tapes that are available, there's too much exposure and there really isn't any privacy when it comes to, or monitoring when it comes to videos like this. But I think what we could do, obviously, just report it when we do come across the video.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that this is probably one of those things that needs to be put on our brainstorming list. Is that, we
Yeah.
need, there's got to be, I mean, and like I said, there's multi-talent, multi-gifted, multi-experienced people within the Katelyn community. There's got to be people who know ins and outs of this, and so that needs to be one of the things on our list. And we need to, maybe create a task force to find out about what can be done.
Was
What
Tony
are the
saying that he knew how? Is that what? Because I couldn't really hear. Was he saying that he knew how to get it removed? The video?
I
No,
think
he
that what
said that Caitlin's video was educational.
no,
Oh,
that
that it should stay
it
up?
had been marked educational. It has
Oh,
been flagged educational, but that he feels there needs to be additional software that would like spy it out, that would know that that was what it is for not just Katelyn, but in any case, and then would reject it.
Oh, okay.
There's special software that recognizes porn or recognizes suicide, murder, beheadings,
Right.
bombings.
That's what it's been implemented in our country. About 2 years ago, the government actually came up with a solution to because there was a massive peak in teenagers watching porn and how easily accessed it was, and they actually came up with a software that prevented this.
Nice.
So I'm wondering if maybe, obviously, the states could maybe think about this if we create enough awareness.
Yeah, I think with the mass requests, I don't see why not. I mean, we're definitely an advanced country, so I don't see why we wouldn't. And the last thing, AJ and Abby, definitely that needs to be totally not accessible, as they get older, especially. So, so let's see, more brain storming things. It's kind of hand in hand, but with data recovery, I was talking about this earlier about how the Casey Anthony trial, for instance, I mean, it's a decade later, but because of new updated, data recovery systems. What did you say the name of the judge was for O.J. Simpson? It was Marcia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she ran this.
No,
I mean, not the judge.
Yeah. You're talking about the attorney?
Sorry?
The attorney? Yeah, Marcia Clark? Is that what you're talking about? Uh-huh.
Yeah. She ran the same test, but with a different system that showed when searches are being made on the home computer. And unlike during the trial when they weren't able to find out the exact timestamp, and so they were having to kind of guess and make up a timestamp, it was inaccurate because they didn't really know like who was at home. But this time that they ran it, the timestamp, they were able to tell that George Anthony, the dad, was at work. They were able to tell the mother was at work because of the phone pings. And therefore, Casey Anthony was the only one at home Googling foolproof suffocation. And, Kaylee died. There was chloroform in the trunk and by her remains and all this. So so that just shows the value of data recovery and the stuff. I didn't even think about Google searches, but there could also even be searches that she had, looked up after her horrific or seemingly horrific interaction with Luke and Anthony and whomever else. And just who knows? Like, it would be really just so valuable for us to see how her mind was ticking, like, right before, like, what she was searching for, things like that, too, beyond just conversations. So that's definitely something that, according to Polk County, they didn't have $5,000 to do the data recovery. Atlanta can do it for $5,000 on one device. I really, really want, if anybody wants to start this, for everybody to just donate $1 minimum.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, to Polk County, not to any person, but just to Polk County. And then $5,000 would rack up really fast because of all the people in the groups. And then they would have no excuse to not, go to the Atlanta computer forensic people and have them do that. I really feel like it could, what's the word I'm looking for? Make it to where someone can legally be charged.
It would make a difference,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something that's one of my top priorities right now. And as far as bullying in schools, because we all know Katelyn was getting bullied, and we all know that her teachers knew, and we know that the counselor knew, and we know that the students knew. It's like nobody can really come up with a preventative way, like to implement, like, or to, nobody can think of anything to prevent bullying in schools. And that's where my mind kind of, I don't know.
I think there, Rachel, because over here, when I was in school, we had people coming into schools, creating bullying awareness in assemblies on a morning, just after morning prayers. Someone would come in and share their stories about bullying, or if it was a child's parent. But bullying is, unfortunately, I believe some people just have that natural bullying trait. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, have you heard of the Zimbardo experiment?
No.
About where basically it was a fake experiment in the 1970s, and Dr. Zimbardo had put in San Francisco, he'd made 8 people prisoners and 8 people police officers, and he gave these 8 people authority over the prisoners. And what happened very, very slowly, the prisoners were abusing this power and abusing the people. And it just shows, you know, like, once people get that small sense of authority, they can really, really abuse it. And it's called the Zimbardo experiment. I think you'd be really, really interested in that, Rachel.
Can you,
Is
yeah.
that the Stanford prison experiment?
Yeah, that's the Stanford one. Yeah, that's it, Ian.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
It's,
Anyway, back.
Fascinating, really.
Yeah.
It's when people crave power. I think bullies, they get off on power.
Exactly.
And like you said, a lot of it is just, it's just how they're born, really. It's their wiring. It's not always, because people always say, well, you know that they're being bullied at home. No, that's a lot of the bullies who I was victim to, they were spoiled, if anything. So that's not always the case. And, you know, bullies have this reputation in the media, on movies, and songs, everywhere. They have this reputation for being cool, for being badass. And that's what I feel needs to die. Like, once bullies are seen as being not cool, like, once it's like, oh, wow, that person's a loser because they're a bully. I just want that reputation of bullies to die down. Like, I don't want people to associate it with, like, being cool. Because that's usually a lot of times where it stems from is the kid's like, ooh, I'm so powerful and I have, like, these followers and I'm a bully. And that's the part that needs to, and that doesn't end in childhood either. That carries off into adulthood. You see it in the workplace and, you know, businesses, and but it's still, there's really no solid path to, but that's where when I'm brainstorming on how to prevent a future Katelyn, I think of the bullying at schools and how kids need to not be afraid to tattletale. I don't even like the word tattletale. I think they should be seen as heroes. The quote-unquote tattletales should be seen as heroes. I don't like the snitching word either. I don't believe in snitching. Yeah. If you're doing it to help somebody else, you know, then oh well. Like, being a snitch means I'm doing the right thing, then I will be a snitch. Like, that's another thing that kids need to...
yeah, but that means that you're the judge, jury, and executioner, aren't you, basically? Because you could decide to tell them something. In fact, you and 5 of your other friends could get together, pick on somebody and say, right, that person, let's just go and tell the teacher. Now, 5 people means that child is going to be punished for something that they didn't do. Who's going to prove these things? You have to start putting cameras all over your schools. The thing about it is your schools would actually become more like courts. Basically, teachers would spend half of their time just trying to sort out the squabbles between children. Where's the education going to come to that?
Yeah, usually teachers, though, ignore when kids tattle. I mean, I worked at my kid's school last year, and that's almost how it was. Kids could be pushed to the ground by other kids, and the teachers would just be like, all right, well, I'll write it up. They never actually really talked to the kids about it. It was like 2 separate realities. And, I mean, I don't, you know, cameras and all that, I actually think that would be a great idea. And scans also, I think people should be body scanned, sadly, in this day and age, before they go into school. But I know they have...
On the other hand, there's some very bent teachers floating around. So some of them might be actually taking the kiddie photos and then selling them to other friends. I saw this thing on YouTube where there was a bunch of teachers. They were actually sitting in a room watching kids fight and betting on them. Imagine that. And, you know, was that? I think it was in America, actually. Yeah, well, a lot of teachers are pretty kind of fucked up people, unfortunately. People that, you know, deal within these kind of services quite often are. A lot of them actually, they like the power that you get over having 30, 40, 50 people in front of you who are under your control. I've had people like that. They like to get out the strap and the cane, and sometimes they tend to walk up to you when you're walking across like the quadrant or something at school. Next thing you know, you've got some creep kind of walking beside you, and they put their arm around you. They start rubbing your side. They say, oh, your socks are down. Well, I was a poor boy, so I couldn't afford to have like bits of rubber and garter and shit like that. So what would happen is, this was the headmaster actually. Here you go, Tony. I'm going to have to give you a little administration. Take me in, give me a couple of whacks across the arse. He filmed this using the upper sixth form to actually. He said that it was because he wanted to show the school masters and mistresses or whatever these things are, the teachers, how to cane properly. This was in the days when you used to cane. So he actually made a video using the sixth form, and they actually showed caning. He was very good at caning, I can tell you that now. But, it's creepy. And the trouble is that,
I'm glad that you brought that up, because teachers can very well be bullies. And that's something, when you said about the rubbing up, I had a 7th grade teacher, Mr. Snyder. He could have easily just told me that my shirt was too low cut. He put his finger in my shirt to tell me it was too low cut in
that's
front
called
of me.
pedophilia. And it's about 2 inches away from rape, that is.
Well, yeah, and he got off on power trips and the bullying.
Yeah.
But from what I heard, it sounded like the teachers would kind of passively bully Katelyn. Like, it sounded like they didn't really value what she had to say or her feelings.
I saw a security guard on YouTube. I don't know exactly what the situation was. I'm sure it's not so good. He ran into a classroom. There was a girl sitting at her desk. He grabbed her. And there's one of those sort of desks that you kind of sit into. They're very weird. So you sort of, it's like a one-piece thing. The chair and the table is the same thing. So it's I don't know what the hell it is. Tubing with a kind of a bit on top of it. That's the seat. And the thing is, he grabbed the girl. She refused to get out of the seat. So he actually swung her and the seat more or less against the wall. And this was actually quite a crowded room. It was almost, well, it was pretty fucked up. And this is a security guard. I think it was in the South. It looks Southern to me. You've got some major problems in America there, actually, with the way that your administration takes care of the population.
We don't treat our school teachers well, and they'll kind of hire anybody, and they don't base it on expertise or experience. Or just how their quality or their performance. They base it on how long they've taught. So you can have a teacher who's horrible, who's abusive, who gets all these horrible reports, and they're still more qualified than a great performing teacher who's only been doing it for like 3 years. It really isn't fair. But yeah, so that's definitely something that if anybody in any of the Katelyn groups, if they all have any ideas, I liked your idea about the cameras in schools.
I have an idea, but I'm not sure. So basically, Melania Trump. She is administrator for cyberbullying. I know Donald Trump is quite a controversial subject, and I don't really want to get too political. But with her obviously being an administrator for cyberbullying, would it be a good idea if we all sort of joined in and wrote a letter or reached out to the White House about this? And
that's a really good idea.
Hear about what they're doing about this, and tell them about Katelyn's story.
I'm writing that on my memo right now.
Because if I remember correctly, she was made like administrator or ambassador for cyberbullying or something like that last year.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is an excellent idea. Heck yes. We can all send mass emails around the same time, so it'll have more of an impact.
Or even a formal letter to the White House or somebody, some sort of, I don't know how the White House works really, but just some letter to the government, because I think it is such a pressing issue, and with Katelyn's story, they might obviously use that if they are working on preventions towards cyberbullying.
Yes.
The thing about it is, if you really want to use Katelyn's story, as people like to call it, you kind of need her mother's permission to do anything like that, really. In terms of the morality of the whole thing.
So should we ask so who should be
none of you mothers would like your children sort of basically taken out of your control by somebody else, and then they use their imagery, they use everything. The reality of this is, and
but
Courtney had something to say about this, which is that basically, as far as she was concerned, Tammy might perhaps have control over Katelyn's actual physical existence, so to speak.
I'm not saying directly use Katelyn as a sort of figure It was more just sort of like creating it because.
Well, Jenny, to be honest, the people that you're talking to do want to use Katelyn specifically. They want to use it for suicide prevention. Some of them would like to have national poster campaigns. I'm sure that people would like to see perhaps this whole thing discussed on, what's that woman's name, DeGeneres?
Well, that would be a good, actually, yeah. Well, I do actually agree with using Katelyn's pictures, but if that's something that Tammy is not accepting, then obviously use the story instead.
She's often said that she just wants it all to stop. Because of course, you know, what most people fail to understand is just exactly what Tammy really has had to go through last year. And what a lot of people don't understand is that Tammy's an extremely nice person. She's actually admired by virtually, apart from one or two people, but the people that she's actually having to deal with these days, they don't find her to be how other people find her to be. And since obviously we talk quite a bit, now I've actually been readmitted to the debate group. That was the one that you were in there a little while ago, Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you leave or did they kick you out?
I left willingly because it was very hostile to me.
It's a very hostile place, isn't it? Yeah, I've been playing with the hostilities today quite a bit. Chastity Dorsey, or whatever her name is, God almighty. But, you know, I'm used to this kind of thing, and most of them can't write for shit anyway. So that's kind of fun. Catfishing, I like it. But this is the trouble. You see, all of these Facebook groups are basically hate groups. And the trouble is, you know, this is actually your army, so to speak, really. These are the people who are interested.
Ooh, not that group. No.
Well, no, but you've got to understand this. People go, you know, these people do stay in the groups and do that stuff, but a lot of them also go onto YouTube. And, you know, I know that Courtney says that she has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with Justice Through Awareness by Rob Silviera. But the reality is that her face is all over that group. She's an administrator on the group itself, the group and also the YouTube. So my way of looking at it is that you can say you're not the actual owner of a YouTube channel, but if you appear on it consistently and appear to have a lot to do with the management of it, then you might as well be the owner. And you're certainly endorsing what the channel is offering. And that channel has got a thing up there which says that Tammy was at a party which didn't actually exist. That Tammy was involved in a video which she wasn't involved in. Now, who's laughing? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Cherokee. Laugh on. Bye.
Okay.
I don't know if she was at a party or not. I just know that
You've refused to send anything. Like, you promised me all sorts of stuff the other day, didn't you, Debbie? And you're not going to send it. I know that because probably you don't have it.
I have. They've heard the conversation. I mean, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, but I mean, I know
what
that
conversation are we talking about?
A conversation
The one with Anthony and how
Anthony said she was here last night, right? Well, and he didn't say where here was. Now, I believe that he was probably at his mother's place, at Deb's place. And because Tammy actually did stay there on the 31st. She picked up the kids' presents and then she drove back home the next day. So, in which case, if you spoke to him on the 1st, then he would have said, and he was at his mother's place with his daughters, then he would have said, well, she was here last night.
I spoke to him the day that the video was put online. Because
I know. And you were going to send me something which showed the date stamp on that conversation, I believe. But some problem with Tim's computer. Hey, you're right, Ian. You okay?
Yeah, I don't like make stuff up when I mean, it's no, I just
I don't know. All I know is this, is that people say a lot of things, you know. Courtney knows that I talk to the family. She knows that I talk to Violet. She knows I talk to Violet. And yet she kind of was denying that I talked to Violet for some time. Courtney knows quite a lot, in fact, that she doesn't tell other people.
Well, I mean,
going back quite a long way.
She wants the same thing that we all want, Tony. Because
honestly, she's more or less implying that they would, and although you denied this after you having said it, she actually did say that if Violet couldn't look after the children and Tammy couldn't look after the children, then there would be support given to Anthony Lee Rogers if he happened to have the children. So that is supporting Anthony Rogers. I don't care how you want to look at that in some kind of twisted way, but the reality is, it's there. I mean, it's on your channel. At the very beginning, there's the whole thing saying that there would be support for Anthony Rogers.
Support wasn't the word used. It was
well, if you give them money to
polite.
buy clothes, if you give them money to buy shoes, unless you specifically give them vouchers that can only be used for these items. But if you give them money, then you're supporting them. In the way that I support Tammy.
Yeah, we know you support
Tammy. I promise, Courtney does not.
Cherokee, you promised me that, all of you promised me this, that you would give me a fair hearing. Now, you're laughing at every time I say something, Cherokee. I could easily prove you wrong, completely wrong, and I could prove myself just as right as I've said.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
So, why
I'm not. Listen,
Cherokee's just a giggly girl.
Maybe I just make you nervous. Well, look, no, the point about it is that you're talking about a national campaign about somebody who's already had enough problems and who's going to get a lot more problems, because I'll tell you what will happen. If you get a national campaign, if a lot of people come to YouTube and see what's up there, what they're going to decide is this. Tammy is a prostitute. Tammy was actually the murderess of her daughter. It's written all over the place. So the trouble is, you can't take it down because, as you all say, it's there forever. And when it comes off of YouTube, you could take it all out of YouTube, YouTube to agree to it, Google. You could get it all off of Facebook if you got Facebook to agree to it, which in fact, that's going to happen too. Facebook over here is going to get severely whacked around the ears one of these days soon. And what is called hate will be a lot easier. They're going to get independent moderation is what they're going to get, which is what they need.
Facebook really drags their ass when it comes to...
Not when you come up to British legislation, it doesn't.
Well,
we change the law here, whatever happens in America. But yeah, I know, but the point about it is, if it happens in Britain, then it's
where Tammy lives. Where Tammy lives in America, it really dragged their ass.
Oh, yeah, that's fine, but that's because they're basically going to wait until somebody kicks their ass. And I know that you have this great idea about Britain and how tiny little place, but you must remember that the Queen owns quite a lot of America, and she is hellishly rich, a lot richer than you can imagine. She's an extremely powerful person. Now, if Britain changes, America will change, because if Britain changes, Europe's going to change. They're already bringing in legislation specifically designed for Facebook and Google. They're already doing it. And some of the places will be quite happy to just chop their services completely. Now, that's not going to happen, but they are going to change. You know, they're not going to be allowed to leave a video up there of a small girl hanging outside of our house for 2 fucking weeks. They're not going to be able to do that, because if they do, they will lose the right to broadcast, to do anything. And the internet is what's the problem. It needs to be regulated to the fucking hilt.
Oh,
That's
yes.
what needs to happen with it. It needs to be, if you get caught, and it needs to be, all of the servers, and there's lots of them, need to be taken out of private hands. They need to be governmentized. In fact, they need to be turned into one single government department.
Yeah, but then doesn't that affect your freedom of speech?
Controls the entire internet.
But how do we know who has it saved, privately?
It doesn't make any difference. They won't be able to broadcast it because it will, everything, no matter what you do, you have to go through a server. You cannot access the internet without a server. You can get yourself a CB kit and you can broadcast over, analog systems. You can do that kind of thing. You can have your own little TV station, but you would need one hell of a lot of money. You see some of those big Christian stations you've got over there, right? I mean, the ones that are broadcasting all over America, I'm sure there are some. I mean, there's some that just, they've got 40 miles. In fact, I think actually where Katelyn was, that church that were around there, there's somewhere around Cartersville, I think, there's a church, and the guys have actually got their own radio station. It probably reaches 60 miles, and so basically all of their congregation can actually, if they can't make it to church, they can tune in and donate. No doubt they can donate. So that's kind of how things work like that. But if you've got a big organ, I mean, I've heard of some of those preacher things. They've got like 35 million people watching in, tuning in. Of that, maybe 10 million is their congregation. These people are severely rich. I mean, billionaire status. And that's all just from preaching the word of God. So, but you have to do that through that kind of a system, an analog system. And that means a lot of money just to get power because, you know, I don't know, it's got something to do with what you have to do with radio waves to get them go further. You've got to have more power. The internet,
How
you
did
can
y'all
do
do
it.
that? How did y'all
Sorry?
get that law? Like, how did y'all get that law passed where y'all are?
What law?
Or how did you get it to where videos like that can't stay up?
How do you mean? Which videos?
There is no law.
Oh, I thought there was a
well-
law in their country.
No,
No, no,
I think
no, oh.
I think he's talking
There's-
about passing a law or getting the software.
He wants there to be a law like that. He's not.
Oh,
saying
I thought
it
he
is
was
law.
saying that there's already one where he lives. Okay, sorry.
No, well, it's not actually just a law. A single law is not going to make any difference. What I want is look, nationalization. I don't know. I'm trying to remember what goes on in America. Over here, basically, if the government decides that they like your company, like say, for instance, you own a private railway, they can nationalize it, in which case it belongs to them. They give you a small amount of money in return, or if you are a friend of theirs, they'll give you a hell of a lot of money in return. Same with the National Health Service. It does belong to us, but they will sell it to you, basically, and they have sold quite a bit of it to you. So, but they still call it the National Health Service. It's just that it's privatized. So they've stolen it and given it to you, given it to Richard Branson, who gives it to GTech Corporation. Yeah, gosh almighty. He owns Virgin, incidentally. Virgin Megastores, that sort of stuff. God knows what else he owns. Oh,
Somebody
he's got that
just
space
joined.
program. He chucks rockets things into space. He's Elon Musk's whatchamacallit, his British counterpart.
Is that Rod?
So anyway,
they finally meet. There they are, Rod and Tony.
Yep, I'm here. Let me
hello, Sergeant.
move to my iPhone.
So, Rod meet Tony, Tony meet Rod.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Rod. How you going?
Been a long time, Tony.
Yeah, it has been.
Hi, Rod.
Well, hi,
I'm
Jenny.
just stroking up my can here, making sure the damn thing's working proper.
Yeah, we hear you fine, and I hear you too, Rod. So what do y'all think of, because this is another thing I brainstorm about and I want fixed. Well, I guess there's really no fix to it, but the psychiatrist who prescribed Katelyn Prozac just lives his life freely. I don't even know if he knows that one of his patients died or committed suicide. And I feel like he owes the public an explanation. He should have to have some responsibility for what he did. Because Prozac shouldn't even be given to a 12-year-old. So, I mean, do y'all have any ideas?
I think at the very least he should have told Tammy to monitor her.
He didn't, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that he did. I'm saying he should have.
How do you know
Makes
that?
me wonder how many more young patients he's given Prozac to.
Probably a lot, presumably.
It just seems like an easy solution. Like less
They make
work.
money off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's legal and it's makes money. It's simple. You know,
But how do you think, because 12 years old is, I mean, there are even so many warnings that if you're already suicidal and you take Prozac, you are so likely to be pushed off the edge, especially if you're under 18. So he needs, like, Prozac's usually not the one that they give 12-year-olds. It's usually Lexapro, Paxil, and there's another one, Celexa or something, but it's hardly ever Prozac for a 12-year-old. And he needs to be held accountable.
well, that's impossible to do.
Do you really think it's impossible, though? Because I feel like...
Yeah. Well, can you imagine this, right? Okay. How do you make them accountable? Well, you personally take them to court, right? Now, I mean, if you've got $100,000, I imagine you could almost begin a court case like that, but you'd lose it really quickly because, one, he would be immediately backed up by the pharmaceutical company that actually supplies Prozac and God knows what else, because essentially, unless there's a law that says you can't give it to somebody under the age of 12, 15, 17, 3, I'm quite sure there probably isn't. It basically comes down to, is this a question of malpractice? Well, the whole of the AMA, the American Medical Association, is going to stand behind and say, no, it's not. Because if he gets done for malpractice, probably around about 30 or 40, 50, 60, 70,000 doctors all the way across, I mean, not just doctors, I'm not sure who can prescribe Prozac, but I imagine there'll even be some kind of lower order pharmaceutical places that can do it without. So what are you going to do? Take the whole? You're talking about the trouble I find with all of this is simple. I don't mind that you all do these things. I just wish you wouldn't involve Katelyn in it, because number one, you can't use her for any of this kind of thing. It's just not going to work.
She touched so many people though, so she's a good example.
Yeah, but what you understand is this: she touched a lot of people, and like within a couple of months of this happening, there were millions of people involved. Right now, you're lucky to get 500 to 1,000 people to come and watch your channel. And the thing about it is,
it's not just about that; it's about Katelyn as well.
But what I understand about it is this quite simply: you would have to make her viral again in order to make any difference.
She already is viral. She's been viral since her death.
No, she's not viral. That's completely wrong. Viral means that you have.
I agree with
she is viral.
If my friends have seen Katelyn, and I've never even mentioned her before, and they've said to me like, "Oh my God, have you seen that video of that girl?"
She is viral.
Okay, but what do your friends think about that, Jen?
The thing, it's sad and depressing, and really.
Do they get involved?
You are?
Do they get involved? I think you wrote somewhere that they don't get involved. They don't seem to get it, I think was what you actually said. Your friends just don't get it. They think it's sad and it's terrible, but then again, well, there's a dance on Friday night, so that's also good.
But some people don't care as much. I mean, honestly, some people just don't.
It's a very confronting thing.
It's like an impression.
It's something else.
It's a very, very confronting subject, and not a lot of people want to dwell on that subject. There are people who are passionate about getting justice for her, but there are a lot of other people that have seen the video, and because it is so confronting, they choose to just detach themselves and distance themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And indeed, some other people see the video and actually just go out and kill themselves. Quite a lot of people do that, I think. I don't think you fully understand exactly what this all means. This is the thing that I don't think you've looked really deeply into it. I think you're glancing across the surface of something which is actually a lot more complex than you fully understand. If you like, Rod maybe knows a bit more about this because obviously he is positioning himself in a good market space for what could come of all of this. Not only that, but also if you ask Courtney, she knows a couple of guys. One of them is John Kelly. He's got copyright pictures. Obviously, Christina copyright. Quillen Johnson, she also tried to copyright a whole lot of stuff. There are songs and things around which people are hoping will go, along with the virality, which will actually make them quite a lot of money. I worry that Jason Dean has actually printed off more T-shirts that Tabby doesn't know about. She's worried about that as well, actually. See, that's the thing about it. There's not a lot of good that can come out of that because it's not a suicide. And I'll tell you what the good is that could come out of it about this is if everybody treated this as what it is, which is a murder by Luke Callahan of Katelyn Nicole Davis via Skype, then that is where you actually come to the true nugget of what's going on here. Number one, the problem you've got is...
Wait, can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Oh, well, the murder of Katelyn Nicole Davis by Luke Callahan via Skype?
This is what I don't understand. How do you murder someone via Skype?
Right, and now you're getting to the true crux of what actually the true value of all of this is, if there was to be a value within it. Okay, and for this, of course, your go-to person is Amanda Todd. Now, Amanda Todd changed the parameters of how we look at the internet because she managed to get somebody in a different country convicted via when he was nowhere near what you might call the scene of the crime, which is basically her eventual suicide, not specifically, well, basically he pushed her to it, and then the kids at school pushed her over the edge. Now, you call this a suicide, but the reality is that it should have been called a murder. Now, I don't actually know what he got charged with, but it got him, I think, 14 years inside. So it sounds like almost a manslaughter charge to me. That's what you get in this country for manslaughter. Murder would get you live. In your country, depending where you are. In Georgia, if Luke Callahan was convicted of murder, he would get probably the electric chair. So, because they've just reintroduced it about in the 80s or something like that. But the thing about it is this is the whole thing. You can't prevent suicide, I'm sorry. The only way you can prevent suicide for somebody like Katelyn is to basically get them a much better house and then monitor the living daylights out of them. You make sure that if her mother can't afford petroleum, gasoline, to drive to a counselling service, you make sure that a counsellor goes out to the house. That's what happens in Minnesota, I think, doesn't it? If you're poor, it happens over here. If you can't afford the services, they send somebody. But down in the south, it's a lot different. They just don't have the resources. They don't have the money.
I'm just trying to like understand what you're trying to say, because you just said you were talking about the ramifications of murder and things like that, and you said that Luke Callahan murdered Katelyn, but then you said people like Katelyn can't be stopped from committing suicide.
No, you can't prevent people from suicide. That's almost impossible to do. A person who's going to kill himself is going to kill himself unless you change. Sorry,
then it wouldn't
unless you can change the area around them. If you're poor and you're depressed because you're poor and you don't see a way forward, which is what a lot of these kids are like. Don't get me wrong, they're not all like that. A lot of them just basically cannot believe the world is as fucked up as it is, and they don't want to stay here. They cannot see a future. They see reality. They see the fact that the best thing that God could do with this planet is throw it into the sun, which is my belief.
I understand what it's like to be suicidal.
But the point about it is, if you have a good look at Katelyn in the morning, please, Ian, no, honestly, you people have talked.
Do you think Katelyn was hopeless? Do you think she was hopeless?
No, of course she wasn't hopeless. I'll tell you what, I saw the video in the morning, and actually, I'll tell you this, when I first started all of this, although I got a full file from Mega New Zealand, that used to be Mega Upload years ago, Kim.com. Before I got that, which is actually pretty much the purest file you can get, there's no messing about with it. It's pretty much original. I actually used to go to Justice for Katelyn Nicole Davis for a lot of my stuff, because they actually held the largest amounts of excerpts, and it's really hard work to get through all of those videos, basically. When you're crying all the time and everything. So I would go there, and then it would just be a short cry, and I could think. But the trouble is, of course, it even warped my mind a little bit until I really got enough of the story together. I didn't know the two. I mean, I went and saw This Is Where I Hanged It. I saw that quite a few times. What I didn't realize, nobody put up the bit where she says to Luke at the end of the first, which was actually a very happy. She woke up a bit groggy, but she went real cheerful, real quick.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Well, because she had spoken to Luke the night before, basically, and all night long too. That's why she was tired and a bit groggy. But by the time she had gone outside and said, "This is where I hang," blah blah blah, come back inside, and then was starting to get around the house and stuff, doing things. She was starting to get to the Katelyn that we like the best, the happy Katelyn. And basically she was talking to Luke, and Luke was quite clearly her boyfriend, my bae. It was nice. It was going on perfect for her and him. After, as we all know, one hell of a fucking week beforehand. So at this point, Katelyn was in good condition, and she was talking about what she's going to mess up AJ's girlfriends in the future, going to tell them all about it, get in the way. She was being the big sister with a big future, looking forward to starting school at Rockmart the next week. Everything was hunky-dory, and nobody can say any different about that. There was no real down points in it at all.
It was hunky-dory.
Well,
look at her lifestyle.
No, please. I need to tell you something, right? You're looking at the last month of a fucking shitty year. You're not looking at her life. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's the truth. I know a lot about life, and don't get me wrong, mate. I know that it was not a great life, but then, of course, if you look at my life wasn't great either, and I still got through it. Now, I'm more interested in this. The point about it is this, right? The problem with what happened here isn't so much that you could change Katelyn's life in any way or anybody else's like her, because you can't do it. There are more poor than rich on this planet. If you try to do the equality, the Christian thing for every single person, I'll tell you what, Bill Gates would have about $15 in his pocket. Once you took away all of it, in which case society would change. We have some problems on this planet. It's called humanity. And also, unfortunately, it's also called we don't have enough time to fix our problems. However, and I don't think the problem that I'm postulating here can be fixed that way either. The problem is the internet. She shouldn't have been able. You should have an internet for a start that is split between 17, let's say 17 just for the sheer heck of it. Above 17, You can access all services, but you need a passport. And if you don't have a passport, a proper bona fide passport that you get issued by a government department, you simply cannot even get a broadband, which we call broadband. You might call it Wi-Fi. You can't even get a provider. Like you can't perhaps buy and drive a car unless you have a license. So that's the thing about it. You need to make the internet like a car, because it's a fucking dangerous thing. It's a lot more dangerous than a car. And it needs a lot more checks and balances. Over here, you have to take your car in and get it checked every single year. They go over the entire car, and if a bit fails, they make you fix it or you can't drive it. I know that in America, you can drive a piece of shit, as Tammy's been doing for the last year, which will get you pulled over and have your children taken away from you. And yet, you know something, there's no checks and balances. You literally drive something which is a parts-only car, and every time you can't even get a tag for it. Now, essentially, I can talk about a whole lot of stuff, and you get pretty confused by it, and so do I. The thing I'd like to talk about specifically is at the end of that Skype, and nobody else except me put this up as far as I can understand, Katelyn said to her boyfriend, Luke Callahan, on the 30th, in the first Skype, she says, Skype, I Skype with you. And then that was the end of what she said before that. Obviously, she said she was playing around. AJ was getting upset about stuff. She was trying to make him happy. It wasn't working. Finally, she thought, shit, I'm going to have to go and deal with AJ. I'm going to go. And she goes to Luke, her boyfriend, who she's in love with so much after such a traumatic blue whale, I would have thought, kind of a month where he just reeled her in and put her out and reeled her in and put her out and went through psychological things. And maybe, you know, maybe he even said, why don't you cut yourself for me? Who knows? Because, you know, the blue whale does do that kind of thing. And Luke is a bit of a fuck up, isn't he, really? I'm sure he knows all about that kind of shit. So, we're back to that thing. Basically, our very happy angel said, I'm going to Skype with you. Now, obviously, she did Skype with him because there's no other way that they would have split up. He didn't necessarily send her a text saying, no, we're broken up. I don't think that happened. She Skyped him, which, of course, I don't know if it's on her phone. I don't know enough about phones to find out. You know, you're saying earlier that, you know, if you could get hold of the phone, which, to be perfectly honest, if you did get hold of that phone, then I would probably rob a bank to come over there and take you to court, I think, for sure. You know, nobody's getting hold of that phone. Trust me on that, apart from the person that owns the phone, which is Tammy. If you steal her phone from the police, then I don't know. Did you just laugh, Courtney? Your face just turned up on my screen. Okay, well, let's forget about the phone, shall we, for the time being. It's a different subject altogether.
She didn't say anything.
We're just talking about the fact that if this gets turned into a murder, assuming, now, I personally, you're going to know my opinion of this, is that I don't want it. Tammy doesn't want it, and I don't want it. And no matter what happens, that's the stance we're going to take, and that's the stance that I'll be fighting from.
It wasn't a murder, it was a suicide.
No, it wasn't.
You don't want the phone, Tony?
What you don't understand, is this. The internet needs different rules because it's a different world. It's a different
Right, we just talked about that. I understand.
The main rule that it needs is this. If you use the internet as a blunt instrument to drop somebody to the ground, as he did with Katelyn, then it becomes a weapon. In which case, if she dies because of something that somebody does to her on the internet, like break her heart, then that person has got to be charged with murder. Now, there's another thing that you kind of forget about. This is quite interesting. Luke Callahan is an adult. Now, you might find, if you really looked into the legality of things, that when an adult takes charge of a child, that person, whether they do it in person or through some device, like for instance, if you call up somebody's child and say, do this, and that person does it, then you are an adult, this child is actually in your custody, so to speak. You are the custodian. You are, in fact, their caretaker. Now, when a caretaker, let's say, tells one of their children to go kill themselves and they kill themselves, then I guess you could say that they really, because that child, so to speak about the legalities of it, you know, is that child has no free will. You know, somebody keeps saying Katelyn had free will. In fact, that fucking piece of shit, sorry, how did I say that? That person from Texas, the trailer trash guy, right now, he said that it was all pure free will. She did it of her own will. It was all her fault. In fact, it was pretty much. I know you all think that no matter what's said on the video, it should stay on YouTube forever anyway, but I don't believe that. I believe that when you make a mistake, and you know it's a mistake, and you've admitted it's a mistake, then you should go back through every single piece of work you've put anywhere in the world and remove it if you can, because that's the only honourable thing to do. If you go,
I agree that she wasn't in her right mind, and she
let me tell you
definitely
something
was influenced. But it was a suicide. It wasn't a murder.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. You take that line, and basically you walk away from the greatest thing that could come out of this, because you're not going to stop anyone from suiciding. You know, you're a couple of hundred people, if you're lucky, that you can actually get to. I mean, you can't even get money to people to donate stuff. Really, it's so complicated, isn't it? Courtney,
What
how
are you
much was
talking about?
it? Tell me about
What?
Courtney, I'm asking you this specifically. Tell me exactly what it is that you sent to Violet at Christmas time. Exactly.
What does that have to do with
It has
Katelyn?
a lot to do, because
What?
it's really simple.
Tell me what?
No, every day you people get on the internet and spread the story wider and wider. And the thing about it is, it doesn't do any good. It's not.
Yes, it does. Yes,
no,
it does.
It doesn't. No,
why don't you tell that to the hundreds of people that inbox me and tell me that my videos have helped them?
They're not suicides. That's what I'm telling you. Like,
you don't know
wasn't
them.
a suicide.
You
I
don't
didn't
know
want to
them.
die. I wanted.
My opinion is that it was a murder. It was not a suicide.
Sorry?
What was the murder?
Katelyn.
Katelyn's a murder.
What
of
was
course
the
it's a murder. And she was murdered by the internet.
Factors.
She was murdered by the fact that the government should have made sure that the LiveMe company, the Chinese company that owns that, had no access to America unless they were fully compliant with the legislation that you need, which is you have one moderator per 1,000 people. Now, this is going to give people a good job. A lot of people in America could actually get jobs working in the industry. It means that the servers don't make the money they make. The companies like LiveMe, which you'd be surprised at how much money they do make, because I believe that LiveMe in China, you can send money, can't you? I mean, you can actually put diamonds and things like that. Now, I'm not really sure how you turn that into money. Katelyn had, I think somebody said something like it was $300 worth of diamonds. I mean, it's an actual. Now, I'll tell you something else. You can get a Capital One card no matter how old you are, as long as you've got an email address. Now, this is a load-up debit card, credit card. It means that basically, if you've got no money, you can't spend. It's not like that.
You can't make money off of LiveMe in America.
No, but you don't need to. You can make it off of China. And basically, they still have access to the internet. And if they want to send a payment to somebody, no, I think, yeah, there's ways to make money. You can say that maybe you can't make it, but if you've got, I've seen people on there. They've got their kids on there, you know, and these kids are 7 or 8 years old, and they are being sexualized by their parents. I'm not, and this is, let me say, I don't have LiveMe. What I did is I sell this on YouTube of LiveMe. Now, I'm looking at this thing, and it all seems reasonably innocent, but, you know, I mean, well, I come from a place where I kind of understand how all this stuff works, obviously, if you believe anything that I've ever told you about my own childhood. So I look at these things, and I think when I see a young boy lying on his bed with his shorts on, his legs kind of strangely apart, and he's sucking on a lollipop, and he's got a lot of views, I think to myself, and then I see his father, who's a real sleazy motherfucker, and he's taken to parks and stuff. I think to myself, you know, this, and there's a lot of this on YouTube. There's a lot of it. This is basically a kind of a child pornography. It's very suggestive. You would put it in the category of being soft porn, but for a lot of pedophiles, they would probably kind of like that sort of thing, I would imagine. So you have a lot of problems with everything. And the problem is the internet. It's not specifically one thing. Now, with regards Katelyn, if in the case of Amanda Todd, they change the mentality, the way of thinking, especially in Europe, towards
Amanda Todd that case was able to have some justice because it was an international case. Katelyn is not.
No, it had justice because the Canadian government was willing to spend more money than the American government.
Right. Well, the Canadian government is asking answers from the Netherlands government.
That's correct.
So you have two governments talking to each other.
Because see, the Canadian government has quite a strong British and French. It's very European.
Which accomplishes nothing. You have Georgia trying to talk to Massachusetts. I don't even think they're even doing it.
No, they're not. They're not going to do it. Why would they bother? I'll tell you why they won't bother, because it's not a murder. It's a suicide, and you can brush it under the carpet so easily. That's where you people have made all of your mistakes.
Well, no. If they do the data recovery, that's where I'm leading. Like if they do the data recovery and they see, because Michelle Carter, I don't know if you're familiar with her case in our country, she was recently charged and she's in jail right now. And she was actually, wasn't she a minor? But she got a boy to kill himself.
Hold on, no, yeah, well, no, she was older than the guy, wasn't she? The guy was actually younger than her, I think.
Yeah.
There is such a thing called assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And that is a crime.
Yeah, well, look, Cherokee, you can keep on going wanting her to be a suicide as long as you like. It doesn't make any difference to me because
I watched her do it. So
I don't care what she said. Yeah, if you make somebody do something, you've got to understand something.
You can't
the actual principle of this is that if it remains suicide, you people don't stand a chance of doing anything.
I'm not saying she wasn't influenced.
If it was a murder, it would change the entire internet.
She wasn't a victim. I'm not saying she wasn't a. I'm not.
She was 12 years old and she does not have free will. That guy pushed her to committing suicide. He said to her, he knew what she was going. He said, "You are not as pretty as my other girlfriends, Dolly. You just act like a whore all the time." And I'll tell you what, he does that.
That's a lie.
Well, we agree with that, Tony.
That's a straight lie.
But Luke,
no, I don't believe that he did say that. I'll tell you what I believe he said. He said
that is not a fact.
Anthony said, and I know when Anthony said what he said, and I know a lot of things. Now, the thing about...
You also say that Anthony didn't abuse her.
No, I told you she wasn't what we would technically, what you might call an abused child. An abused child.
No, you said she lied. You said she straight up lied.
No, I didn't say she lied about the abuse.
I have the screenshots. Tony.
Not about the abuse. I said that Katelyn lied. I didn't say it was about the abuse.
Yes, you did, because I have the screenshots.
Then put it up on fucking YouTube. I tell you this over again.
Okay, I will.
I said to Jimmy Lee Fisher, put up your accusations. Nobody's done it. Now, I said that she lied about being 13. She said,
but before that, you said she was lying about
I'm telling you this.
being raped by Tony.
Everything
you said 12-year-olds lie.
Well, they do.
Because I asked you why you said she lied about being molested, and you said because 12-year-olds lie, and the reason you said that she lied about her age, it was the same reason. Was the same. Excuse me, I'm talking. Excuse me, I'm talking. Excuse me, I'm talking. The reason that you said that she lied about being molested was the same reason that she lied about her age. I have screenshots of it, and I can post it if you want me to.
Or send it to me in Messenger or whatever. We're connected up. You can send that to me.
I'll do it right now.
I'm quite happy to have. I won't go and check it because I'm running 2 computers. And
yes,
this one here is. Sorry?
You did say that because I've
well, show it to me. If I said it, then maybe I said that. The reason is this. Okay, I'll tell you. As far as I understand, my belief. Well, I'm going to say this is my belief. And around about June or July, the family were. And I don't know if the children were there. I'm not really sure about that. But I do know that anyway. On this particular day, they were in the pool, splashing around, doing whatever they were doing. Tammy got a call from one of the neighbors, so she went over to the neighbor's place. When she got back, now I don't know exactly when she was told this. Please understand this. This is something that I haven't discussed deeply with her. But when she got back, somewhere along the lines, Katelyn said that Anthony had tried to kiss her and that he had tried to put his tongue down her throat. Right? Now, Tammy wasn't there. Tammy didn't know. Now, you don't know, and I have to tell you this, you don't know Katelyn as well as you think you do. I'm sorry to say that. I don't know Katelyn as well as I would like to know because you can't find out. It's as simple as that. You cannot tell from all of those videos. People like to say that she was crying all the time because that's what justice through awareness likes to push. The reality is that one of these days, somebody, if this continues the way, if it continues or whatever, maybe if it doesn't continue, but maybe if somebody gets the interest, somebody's going to go through all of those 30 hours of video. In fact, 29 hours and 25 seconds, I think, is the account that I got. But I know it varies depending on where you sourced your videos. I think the Mega NZ source is 20. I added it up. It's 29. It's just short of 30. So basically, it works out 1 hour per day. But we all know, of course, that it doesn't actually chop up that way. However, somebody's going to take all of those. I might do it. I've thought about doing many times. Go through it and say, how many times was she unhappy? Exactly how many times? How many times did she cry exactly? What was the duration of those crying? And what exactly was the backstory? I mean, for instance, the picture that's shown after a conversation with Tammy, she was bawling her eyes out. But the reality is that she had that conversation about Luke. Tammy did not handle that terribly well, I have to say, but you've got to understand exactly what the situation was there as well. They were getting poorer and poorer. There was no income. No
Yeah,
income.
and we've talked about how,
Well, the point about it is what I'm saying is that Tammy tried to do her best. People have pointed out that at the end of that fairly large segment, Tammy did actually sit down and say, Katelyn, you know you can talk to me. And there was that touching moment, and there's quite a few of these. Trust me, if you go through it, you will find there's a lot of them. There's a lot more touching moments than there are painful moments. There's a lot more happiness.
Abby and AJ, yeah.
Sorry?
With Abby and AJ, there wasn't a lot with Tammy.
No, you didn't see Tammy very much. I'll tell you something about this, right? Tammy didn't know that app existed. She didn't know what it was. She didn't even know how Luke had sent, she wasn't aware of that kind of thing. People go, oh, she was watching and all sorts of shit like that. That's bollocks. Tammy
well, don't you think she should have known, though? I mean, you even...
No, I'll tell you something, right? They should have known, but I'll tell you, it didn't need to be known because I'll tell you what, that app is an R13. You're not supposed to get it under 12. Now, if the government was doing what it's supposed to be doing, then the moment that one single person that was identifiably under 13 accessed that app, then they should go straight to the server and say, right, we want you to cut off this .com company. And they'll go, Live Me, okay, switch. Live Me cannot get into America through any American server. Now, you can get it if you've got satellite, but not many people do have satellite because you'd be bypassing the servers. And
the government doesn't raise children. Parents raise children.
Yes, well, I'll tell you what. It only can raise children if you've got a job. And unfortunately, people who don't have jobs don't necessarily get neutered either. So, it tends to be that when you've got more time on your hand, you fuck a lot more. I don't know why that is, but there you go. So I don't have much time, so it doesn't interest me. Hey, sorry, that was a joke.
Well, we forgive Tam. This is the thing. We don't hold, we forgive.
Would you like to think about what the population of America is going to be like in 10 years' time? I'll tell you what, you're not going to have one river you can actually fish in. You're not looking at the real problems here. The real problems is you're trying to do something about something you can't do anything about. I'll tell you what you'd be better off doing. If you took $1 for every single hour that you have spent on this case and gave that to Tammy, because I'll tell you what, she's not going to put it up her nose at all. She passes all of her drug tests. She does not a drug deal. She's not what you think she is. And I'll tell you something, you're just making it worse and worse and worse. And you know who's paying for this? Abby and AJ. They're who's paying for it. And I'll tell you what, their payment is going to get a lot bigger if you fuckers keep on doing what you're doing. Simple as.
You're talking to the wrong crowd.
Yeah, I know I am. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to fuck off. Pieces of shit.
Talking to the wrong people.
Goodbye. Look, I'll tell you something, Courtney. If you think you're going to win this, just keep on. No, I'm sorry, I'm gone. Goodbye.
Bye.
He talked
See you later,
a lot.
coward.
What are you talking about?
Okay, he left.
He talked more than anybody. What is he talking about?
Yeah. He just literally had a fight with himself, online.
Okay, y'all. Okay, so I want to, the next thing I wanted to talk about was this functioning addict myth that was in the other group I was in. So what a lot of people kept saying in one of the Katelyn groups, and this is the only Katelyn group that I've ever been in, and I've been in tons. I'm usually not very active in them unless I just randomly post something about Katelyn. I read it and stuff, but I'm usually more lurking than posting. But this one was called a debate group, so and I guess I should put them on blast, but I mean it's pretty. Let's just say it was hostile in there, and of course I was going to ask one of the relatives who's in the group. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the relatives.
Tell me about.
Yeah.
Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Nicole Davis debate group.
Rachel.
Yeah.
And
stop for a second.
Quite a few things to say in there. Okay, go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
EK says speaks to people like he knows everything. No one even said a word, and he got super mad. Exactly.
Yeah, he wouldn't let anybody talk. And
Yeah.
I was just trying to understand him.
Well, that's why I'm just moving on, because I don't want anybody to like think we're, because our last live stream, because people weren't really seeing what was being said in the chat, people thought that we were being bullyish or mocking, which I guess, I mean, technically, yeah, there was some mocking, but it wasn't
Well,
really.
I need to comment on that because some people have commented about me singing and me making jokes. I mean, Tony and I text each other on a very regular basis through the telephone, not through Messenger, not through Facebook, not through any app, through the telephone directly. People don't see the kind of communication that goes back and forth between he and I. And so they have absolutely no idea where that's coming from. Tony knows where that's coming from. He knows the names that he calls me. I know that he likes Elvis. I like Elvis. Everybody knows that I call him tone it down. He knows that too. I call it to him, on the telephone. So, without any backstory, people might judge and criticize, but I don't think that there was anything out there that was really crazy. And if there was, he never would have stepped foot into this podcast tonight.
Right.
Hey.
Started out decent, but then he got kind of hysterical toward the end.
Well, this is, this topic it's like Cherokee said earlier, it's one of it is the darkest thing I personally have ever come across. And
Rachel, please, can you send Jenny the link? She's trying to call back in. She needs the link to click to get back in now.
yeah. And by the way, something was said about, yeah.
I wanted to say, Paul, I think Paul wants to get in on here if he wants to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ghetto Boy, if he wants to.
All right.
Just a second, Jenny, if you can hear us, we're sending you the link. So just click on the link when you get it.
I just sent it to her. And does Paul, have you posted your, let's see, I have to have his email address.
Jenny, hold on.
So, Paul, when I get your email address in the chat, then, oh, she said to do it again? Okay.
Hey, Ghetto Boy, send your email address. You'll be invited.
Mm-hmm. All right. The thing is, this is such a heated topic, and we all have our own opinions, and for me, they're ever changing. Like, I go back and forth.
He's the only one that gets heated because he's a psychopath.
Oh, no, I get heated sometimes, like when people try to say that.
He just literally had an argument with himself and then hung up.
I think it was what I said that set him off.
What did you say?
I mean,
I said he's talking to the wrong people because we are not part of a hate group. We do not hate Tammy. We are not speaking ill of her. We are not causing harm to her. I don't, wherever he is getting his information from, it is wrong information. That is all I'm going to say.
Courtney, everyone stayed quiet and let him talk. And then he cried. Right. What the hell?
Every time somebody tried to talk, he talked over them.
Well, and let me tell you, my microphone button was stuck, and I felt like, okay, this must be some sort of sign to zip the lip.
I think that was argument by filibuster.
He got mad at me laughing. Like I was laughing at him.
Well, I think, I don't, so I used to, maybe he's just paranoid in that way. I don't know.
He's insecure.
He did say, refer to the Texas guy, just in case that Texas guy was watching. I don't agree with that. I don't want him to feel like we all feel like he's trash. So I did want to clear that up. Because he did refer to him as trash, but all right.
Okay, Jenny is calling me again.
She's been calling me for a long time, but the thing is, he hates himself more than we hate him. That's the problem.
I don't know. I felt like we were really starting to get grounded. I was just about ready to ask him, what would you like to see happen? And see, all that I think he wants to happen is for us to just let it go. And we're not going to let it go on any level. We are not going to leave this alone. We are not going to be quiet. We are not going to let it go. And sorry if indirectly or directly he or his fiance Tammy is impacted. That's how the dice roll. I'm sorry. We've been going strong for over a year, just like Angelica Firefly wrote. It's been a year and we are still going strong with the support. It's not going to stop, and it's not going to stop now.
Right.
Tony said that there's been nothing accomplished by us for an entire year, but there's been a lot. We've kept
a lot.
Kept the flame going, kept the public awareness going. And because of that, I think that pressure goes on people like Luke Callahan. I think he lost his stride and lost his cool. And did something that wound up putting him in jail. Now, the same thing could happen to Anthony Lee Rogers, because now we've had the distribution of that murder video that he put out, or somebody put it out on the anniversary of his death, and that brought Anthony back into the public eye quite a bit.
Well, not to mention
we put public pressure on.
Pressure, yeah.
Not to mention the suicide prevention that has happened along the way.
Yes, I was going to say a lot of people realize that when they watch Katelyn and they watch all the admirers that she has and fans, they see like that this person who felt so alone and so unloved actually was so loved by so many people. She just didn't have the ability to meet those people yet. And that to me is what impacted me the most. And that when people realize that, when they watch Katelyn and they're like, oh, this gorgeous girl, she's so talented and pretty and like amazing and sweet, and she had little to no self-worth, and she took her life, like someone like her did that. And it just shows that if she had just waited, that she could have met all the people who grew to love her. If she was just trapped in a situation where, you know, like the caged bird that sings. And I feel like that when we talk about that and people go watch our live streams, that does teach people a lesson.
And regardless of what Tony is indicating, Tammy knows that we are not a hate group. I can assure you that.
Wait, and hold on a second. Hey, Paul Brooks, I sent you a link if you want to join.
So I wanted to talk about this functioning addict myth. And I saw this perpetuating in that group, it's a Katelyn debate group. And it's funny that they call themselves debate group because, and I shouldn't put them on blast because a lot of the members in there are amazing people. And a lot of the moderators are amazing people. It's only a select handful, but they kind of take over every thread. And so in this so-called debate group, and I say so-called because they don't really allow for any differing opinions without going cuckoo, they were, so the great uncle Steve is in there, and he talks a lot in there voluntarily. So I felt comfortable enough to make a post in there where I basically just said, I forgot exactly how I worded it, but it was along the lines of wondering, you know, why he wasn't there, and because he was saying that he had no idea that abuse was going on in the home, but at the same time he said that he always knew Tammy was an addict. So I said, well, how does that even work? If you know somebody's an addict and they're in the care of 2 toddlers and a 12-year-old, then how can you say you didn't know abuse was going on? And it wasn't just him. It was, I want to say, I saw at least 3, 4, 5 people regurgitating this myth. There is such thing as a functioning addict. And yes, maybe you could say functioning in terms of cognitive, like they can get up and brush their teeth and go to work. But as a parent, functioning addict is an oxymoron. There is no such thing, because the whole thing that differentiates addiction from just using something is addiction is when it actually interferes with your life. It actually becomes debilitating sometimes, and it is your main priority. That's why it's called addiction. And so that's the fact that these people in this group are actually perpetuating the very thing that has a lot to do with why Katelyn is gone right now. And I know Tony won't like me saying that, but it's the truth. I mean, the Steve's whole thing was, well, why didn't she ask me questions? Well, and I mean, it's all public in the group, so unless somebody deleted it, but he even said, well, she didn't come ask me questions, and what else? Oh yeah, well, I mean, I knew she was an addict, but I didn't see pills anywhere. I didn't see bruises. Well, if you know somebody's addicted to any kind of mental brain altering substance, even if it's legal, if somebody was addicted to Benadryl all day and they were in the care of children, just because Benadryl's legal, then that's not a functioning parent. That's not a parent in the sense that I think of a parent anyway. And I feel like Katelyn taking her life should be proof of that. I feel like it is so dangerous that we have not just people, but mothers in these groups perpetuating this myth of functional addict. You heard Katelyn's own voice. Forget me, forget what I'm saying. People can disagree with me on this, but listen to Katelyn's own words when she was crying out and saying, Mama, Mama. She would talk so much about how all her mom cares about is drugs. So that means it was impacting her, not just her physical life, but her emotional life. She felt like her mom put drugs first. And whether or not, that's true, that's how Katelyn perceived it. And so this functioning
reality.
Yes, and Katelyn had her own and that's another thing that a lot of these people don't realize, including Katelyn's remaining family members. I don't think Tammy thinks this way, but I know actually Tammy doesn't feel this way. Tammy feels awful. But most of the people in Katelyn's remaining family, like Steve, for instance, they fail to still see her reality. They fail to still see her reality. The questions I was asking Steve, he kept mocking me and saying, oh, do you want an interview and all this? Which made no sense because I asked in a group with a bunch of people, so that didn't even make sense. But this is commentary, what I'm saying right now. And I don't know if he knows the definition of interview, but that's when I'm actually asking him direct questions. So that format does not fit for this. So if he wants to call this, I'm just commentating on what he was saying. And another thing that he said that I found very disheartening is that he said he has no regrets for not. He said the only thing he has regrets for is not knowing what was going on. And I said, so you're saying that you don't have regrets?
He said that?
Yes, I have it in right. It's on in.
Oh yeah, I read that.
And then I said, so you're telling me that you don't have regrets for not digging deeper when you kept getting wind of Tammy being an addict, and you kept getting wind of like little indications here and there of abuse. And his response was, well, Valerie was doing nothing. Well, Valerie was in and out. And I do agree with him on that. I do feel like because Valerie was more active in the home, she should have definitely, especially because she had more of a stable life, or seemingly stable life.
What do you mean Valerie was more active in the home? You mean that Valerie would go and frequent Tammy and Anthony's mobile home more often?
I don't know. This is when Steve made it sound like Valerie went over to the house a lot. So whatever he meant by that.
But Valerie and Anthony did not get along at all.
Well, okay. See, there was no communication. And I said, well, why didn't you ask Katelyn or talk to Katelyn? And he said, well, she didn't tell me anything. And that's another thing is people can't, if in the family, that was a problem for me growing up.
Disclose everything?
Do what?
A child is supposed to go up to a great uncle and disclose everything?
Exactly.
Why are we adults then?
Children are usually by nature not willing to just come out with that sort of thing. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. They don't want to, especially a 12-year-old, and so when I was little, people would be like, well, Brenda, which is my mom's name, she won't let anybody talk to Rachel. And so they just all abandoned me. And I used to think, well, they obviously don't care. And that's how I'm tired of all of these excuses being made for the family that could have stepped in and didn't. They knew what Tammy went through as a child. They knew that Tammy had an unfair upbringing, and they shouldn't have expected Tammy to just come out of a tornado and do everything perfectly. They should have known because of the trauma, the lingering traumas, that she needed support.
I just found one of the screenshots that Tony claims he never said. I can read it to you, of him saying that she was never molested.
Yeah, please do, Cherokee.
It says, "Get fucked, you godless piece of unchristian filth. I hope you die badly and lie rotting in a grave, ignorant fucking sheep. All these people are calling unproven speculations facts. Katelyn has never been molested. People generally say, get a life, fuck that, y'all need to get dead.
And see, this is why I invited him to come on, because a lot of times when people spew vitriol in writing, some people refer to it as trolling. I refer to it as trolling. That means that they need to speak out. They need a release. They need to vent. So that's why I wanted him to vent, because a lot of times when people don't feel like they're being heard, they go off into tangents. And so I wanted to give him the chance. And he is,
And he did. He went on and on and on and on, and we all let him talk. And then he cried and left.
Tony needs to learn to control his dialogue. He can't just gabble on and on like.
It's very emotional. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
I just,
Welcome back.
sorry, I couldn't
back,
talk
Jenny.
when Tony was on, and I was just getting really frustrated.
It's okay. We all were.
And so
I
another
sent the screenshot to Tony just so, and I can send it to anybody who asks me. And I have a few others where he says she wasn't abused.
Well, the fact that he
all.
said he didn't say it, that shows shame on his end. That shows that he, usually a person denies something when they realize it was wrong. So hopefully, I don't know, some people say things in writing that they normally wouldn't say. I mean, that's
right. Well, Tony is kind of out there, and I think he has a cannabis addiction too, so he may not remember all the things.
He has a spice addiction. He doesn't smoke pot.
Well, I don't really want to go like I don't think that we want to challenge his personality. I think we need to challenge what he's saying.
Yes, and I think we all agree about Luke.
And I think it's fair to say that he's passionate
we do.
about what he believes, just like we are.
I don't agree that Katelyn was murdered. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Well, I think
Luke was the final.
I agree she was provoked, probably.
I don't think that it's like you are receiving it the way that it's not. I mean, I've had this conversation before. This is how Tony and I started talking way back in March. And it's without the coaching and without the conversations and without the relationship with Luke, he does not feel that this would have happened like this.
Bullshit.
So he believes firmly that had Luke not esteemed Katelyn so high, put her on a pedestal, and then dropped her and devastated her, along with the other environmental things that were going on in her home, things would not have happened like they happened.
But he just said 10 minutes ago that people like Katelyn, you can't stop them. They're eventually going to commit suicide. He said that over and over again because he said because she was poor, she was going to end up committing suicide, and it was inevitable.
Yeah, I noticed that contradiction too.
I tried to ask him about it, and he just talked over me.
Do you know
very passionate, very, very.
I had a really lovely quote yesterday, and it said that when a flower is broken, it's not the flower that you fix; it's the soil and the environment that's around it. So, and I think that's very reasonable towards Katelyn's situation.
Yes, you don't give the flower Prozac.
Jenny is just
I think that
sweet.
It's very hard. He's in love with Tammy, and he cannot allow his heart to blame Tammy for whatever reason, right or wrong. And I'm not asking for a comment on that. I'm saying that he can't say that it's like the hate groups believe that it's entirely. I mean, if I could tell you the things that the messages that Tammy has gotten, I mean, I would have already employed a bodyguard. The things that I've seen that she has received, the things that have, I mean, it's way beyond any control. And I know that if Tony has had access to any of that, I can understand why he's upset, because he's saying that Tammy's never going to have a life and escape underneath this cloud. And I understand that, but at the same time, there is something very real here, and there were very serious conditions that contributed to the whole picture.
Well, her child died. You're never going to escape it anyways.
Yeah.
But there are, when he talks about what you saw on video, I'm sorry, a lot of that stuff isn't just a little snippet. A lot of that is reality. And I know that because of the last 12 months that I have been on this journey.
Well, yeah, and it's not about quantity; it's about quality. And if you know that if those moments impacted her so much and brought her down so low, it really doesn't matter how seldom they happened. I mean, being molested once can traumatize someone forever.
Another inconsistency was, he said, like, going back to saying she was poor and it's inevitable. People like Katelyn, you can't stop them. They're going to do it. She was very poor and lived a very poor life. And then he said, well, you guys don't know anything. You saw 1 month out of a very bad year.
See, when people start talking that she was too poor and she was messed up, that is Anthony Rogers talk, and it's very concerning to me.
What do you mean?
Because Anthony Rogers has
he
this
said the
belief
same thing,
that there was nothing that could have stopped Katelyn. That they did everything in their power. You cannot tell me that the police were called to that house because Katelyn had a knife underneath her bed. They took AJ and Abby into their room because they were worried that Katelyn was going to murder the family. There was something going on there.
Yeah. She was probably going to cut herself, maybe. I mean, when you're a cutter,
or maybe she was going to harm them, and maybe there's still more to the story that we don't know.
And that's why I wanted to hear Tony out, because we all, in the end, ultimately, we all just are theorizing. None of us know for sure. Not even the police know for sure. We're not in her psyche. Unfortunately,
but he needs to understand that he is on the same level that we are.
Right.
While we are willing to hear him out, what he is saying is also speculation. It is not fact. It is not gospel.
I think because he's spoken with Tammy at great length, according to him, like daily, I think that's why he feels, because she's Katelyn's mom.
Well, here's the thing. Tammy doesn't tell the truth about everything either. So, and I'm sorry for the people that don't want to hear that, but she lies.
Well, I haven't heard anybody tell the truth. To be quite frank, I haven't heard anybody tell the truth except for Katelyn.
Yeah, that would be refreshing.
Yeah.
Somebody leave.
No.
Jenny left.
Jenny.
Okay. I do just want to break in real fast though and say that in that same debate group, I say debate with quotations, debate group, they were showing screenshots of how somebody in the chat last time donated $2. I don't think these people are educated at all at how Google AdSense works, because first of all, intent-wise, I've never asked for donations. I've never even hinted at it. I've never said, hey, sub to me. I've never said, like my videos. There's not a single video on my entire channel going back to 2007 where I have ever, or 2006, where I've ever asked anyone to sub or like. Never, ever. So that's out of the way. Secondly, the person who donated $2, you can't even retrieve it unless you reach a monthly threshold of $100. That is fact. Google it. Ask other YouTubers who've ever gotten a donation. So them spreading around this picture, and same goes for Skeleton Goth's 2 separate donations of 20, which, by the way, had nothing to do with Katelyn. Though I can't retrieve it unless it reaches a monthly 100. And YouTube, actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before, especially with their new rules now, it's even, which I couldn't care less, this isn't my job, but it even affects smaller YouTubers even more now. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way because that made me sick to my stomach.
You couldn't access it. You couldn't access it, but you had planned to donate it anyway without anybody asking you.
They don't care about that part. Even if I said I was going to donate it, I mean, I did say it last time, but they clearly don't care about that. And then they would demand that I show that I don't, which I have no problem doing. But I can't even, like you said, I can't even access it. I can't pull it out until it reaches 100. And this is where I don't know if they're just
All it was just assumptions from a bunch.
Well, it's assumptions, but they're stating them as fact, and they're slandering me, and they are, which I don't really care about it. I mean, initially it felt like a kick in the stomach because it deals with Katelyn, but then I got over it and I blocked them because I don't need toxic people like that around me. I put my entire self out there.
Currently, mostly is Steve Parrish.
He was the one that came to me, and it was a terrible day that was already going on, and that was the last thing I needed to read was him showing me a screenshot and trying to act like I'm making money off of Katelyn because someone donated $2 that I can't even retrieve, that I didn't even ask for. I mean, people can really want to dig deep. They can go through every single thing and see. I've never made money off of Katelyn. Suicidal topic. She can't make money. Just wanted to put that out there.
And Steve, that I'm not be getting any proceeds from a book that I wrote on Katelyn, and then he also gets on that Katelyn Nicole Davis debate group, and Steve, he donated the grave, I guess the plot for Katelyn.
It was pre-existing, and it was given to him by his family. So he donated.
So given to him by his family, and now it's sinking in, and the groundwater's flowing in. And apparently, Katelyn is in a wooden casket, so the dirt's flowing in there. The water is flowing onto her face or whatever.
No, it's already been compromised and collapsed.
What's that?
The grave has already been compromised and collapsed.
Okay, so they won't spend the money to dig that up and put her in a metal coffin. Or just simply let her body deteriorate, but they want to put a bench next to the grave. It seems to me they have their priorities wrong.
Honestly,
so what do you think of that, Court?
Like,
you can say it, Cherokee. I remember what you were saying earlier about how you don't really think. I forgot exactly how you worded it, but it was like, in the end, it's not the most important part of the case or something like that.
Well, honestly, I am so fucking sick of hearing this stupid motherfucker's name. I'm tired of hearing his name. Where was he whenever Katelyn was feeling suicidal? Like, you want your ass kissed because you gave up something that was already given to you. Like, I don't care what your prerogative is. You're online talking shit like a schoolgirl. I mean, you follow somebody. Her name's Tina. He gets all of his shit from Tina, who in herself is the biggest drama queen I have ever met in my entire life. And she tries to play devil's advocate and do her dirty work through all these other people. And like, I'm just done with the entire situation, because that's all he is. He's intertwined in all of that bullshit, and none of it has to do with what we're trying to do.
Hey, you stop talking about the Steve. Stop talking about him.
Steve.
You see, well, the problem with the grave is, okay, now, it's okay if they just let it be destroyed, her actual coffin and her body, whatever, but I see that grave as becoming a shrine and having the ultimate of respect for Katelyn. So it needs to be taken care of and
I understand that. I understand that too.
And young people all over the world are eventually going to come and visit that.
Yeah, that's exactly
just
what
like
I said.
you visit the memorial of Anne Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So to just have complete disregard for what's going on under the ground with it, to me, that's totally wrong.
Right, it's part of her memory, and it needs to have, like I said, the essence of Katelyn. And I also said the same thing about how it's going to have, it should anyway, have visitors, regular visitors every year. And it needs to be welcoming, and it needs to have just more of a uniqueness. It
should be one of those things that kids go on field trips to see.
Yeah.
She is a name.
It's too late. The grave has already been breached.
And I don't know why that certain same family member goes around saying that they paid for some of that, acting like that was a huge favor. I mean, doesn't it go without saying that you would want to do that? Like, why seek praise for that? That makes me feel a little, it just doesn't feel right in my gut to hear.
Yeah. But Courtney, why do you say it's too late? Why can't you get backhoe in there?
Because
dig it down to 5.5 feet, dig the rest with shovel, carefully lift up what you have.
No,
and
because
then place what remains.
There is no liner and there is no vault. So the casket went directly into the ground, and the entire earth there, the entire soil has been flooded all the way up to ground level, down to the casket. So the top of the casket has collapsed on top of Katie.
Right, but she
Wait,
was
what?
involved, right? So I believe she wouldn't decay immediately.
The
There
top
would
of it.
still be life.
I'm sorry. It collapsed on Katie?
The entire it is the thinnest wood casket that can be purchased. So imagine that you have a wood box that you have immersed in water for 3 to 4 months. And so then you are trying to pull it out. Their policy is that when they go and they start to backhoe, as soon as they see that the casket has been compromised, their policy, this is the funeral home, is to not disturb the loved one. They seal the ground up. That's it.
Why?
Because it's disturbing the rest of the deceased. They have exhumed one body ever in the history of that funeral home, and that was for relocation.
Oh, okay.
Well, and if that's what they want, I guess.
My daughter's awake. I gotta go.
All right, thanks for coming on, Cherokee.
All right, Cherokee, it was nice talking to you. And say hi, Ira. How you doing, Ira? We love you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to go also because I have a family to get to.
All right, okay. Rod.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Jenny's back.
Hi.
And Ron, you've been talking a lot in the chat. Join us. Come on here. Let's talk.
Hi.
Hey, Jenny.
Hi. I want to talk about I've sent you something over Messenger, Rachel. When you get time to look at it. But in England, quite a few years ago, there was an issue with teenage suicides over Ask FM, which was basically like this anonymous sort of like platform where you could send anonymous questions and abuse to each other. And a girl called Hannah Smith had hung herself. And so basically our government had actually really, really cracked down on Ask FM and forced internet providers to sort of step up. But I went and looked online, and there's like an awareness poster with facts on about teenage suicides because of online bullying. And it says, you can help put a stop to this unfortunate experience of bully suicides through the following steps. Number 1, keep computers in the living room. Number 2, tell your children not to give out personal information to anyone online. Number 3, go over your child's buddy list and ask them who each person is. And number 4, discuss and let them understand more about cyberbullying. And then it's got statistics at the bottom. I mean, I've sent you all, Rachel, but
I'm looking at it right now as you read it.
Yeah, and I think something like that, but with the sort of maybe mentioning Katelyn or something, if we had permission.
Totally, because when you specifically think of Katelyn, even like because Tony was saying, the conversation that she had with Luke, based on those steps, she wouldn't have been able to have that conversation with Luke had one, it says the computer in the living room, tell your child to give out personal information, which I guess that part wasn't necessarily the important part, but go over your child's buddy list, ask them who the person is, discuss, let them understand more. Oh my gosh, yes. That could have definitely been preventative, because if Luke is the prime antagonist, I personally feel like it's a mix of Luke and Anthony, then a lot of this, because cell phones freak me out with kids for that very reason, because of how there's such a hidden aspect to them. I mean, people can be cheating on their partners right next to their partner on their phone, like that's how secretive.
I think we've become too sort of secretive with our phones and with our information, and it's too accessible, and it scares me too. But I think maybe, I don't know, with things like Live Me and stuff, is there no way that you could have monitors online, you know, like paid people who can monitor things.
Oh, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. Ian and I have actually gone into LiveMe. We go specifically to the ones that have the hashtag girls, and we'll look for the ones that have young looking girls. And a lot of times there are very questionable guys in the chat. The girls will clearly say, "Oh, I'm 12, I'm 13, I'm 14." Some of them have said, I'm 9. And then the guys will have a screening like 69, 69 bear or whatever. And they're like hitting on these girls and asking where they live and asking what their favorite food is. And it's like, you never know what that could lead to. And this goes on. It's so often. It's I guarantee you, like, they could do a statistic and it would be like every minute a certain amount of this going on in the entire world. And it is.
I genuinely believe that the best way to combat or to approach this is to send a letter to the White House.
I do too, especially if we all do it. And like you said, if it's formally written.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Tony is talking. Tony is talking in the chat.
Okay, he's not blocked. He has the link if he wants to.
Yeah. He's in the chat as sex at 7.
Okay, I see. Oh, is Rod still here? Okay. Well, he can come back if he wants to talk. Social media as a whole is the problem.
No, but the thing is, Rachel, we were so fair. Nobody talked. He talked for like half an hour, and nobody interrupted him. We just let him talk, and then somebody said something to him, and he cried and left.
I think when
you have to be willing to hear what other people have to say.
Yeah, some people are really sensitive to, and some people who aren't used to talking in groups, or just used to.
I mean, I'm not used to talking in groups.
Yeah, me neither.
Live on YouTube as well.
I'm with you, Jenny. I'm with you.
Yeah. So I mean, I just always try to think of that, because sometimes when my son is nervous, he'll just be like, okay, you're all weirdos, and then he'll like run off, and it's like, Ryder, why did you do that? And it's like, that's him.
Yeah.
Rachel, Tony talked for a long time. I don't think anybody could say we gave him a bum rap, or we didn't give him enough. He was able to talk as long as he wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I would let if the angry the grumpy people from that debate group wanted to come on. I like to hear other people's perspectives, as long as they don't slander. That's where I draw the line. But he didn't slander anybody, so that's the only reason I didn't care. Ian, is he blocked? Is what Courtney asked you?
No, he's not blocked. In fact, Rachel, I'm not even a moderator.
Okay, I didn't block him, so he's not blocked.
You demoderated me.
Did I? I think when I refreshed my. Hold on.
I guess I was. I mean, I would be doing my job, but you stopped me from doing my job.
Let's see. Oh, he's not blocked. I just went and checked. So.
I'm going to go anywhere, Rachel, because I've got a doctor's appointment. But thank you for letting me on tonight. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Yes, and thank you for being here. I hope your appointment goes well.
Thank you. Good night. Good night. Good morning.
Good night. Thanks for the information.
Nice.
Thank you. Bye.
Nice talking to you, Jenny. Have a good night.
Good night, Ian. Bye.
Good night.
I'm going to send you also the link that Jenny sent me, because it is very informative. The website is nobullying.com/stories of 17 suicides because of Ask FM bullying. And even if it's not just limited to Ask FM, I mean, it pretty much encompasses all of the social networking that kids gravitate toward now.
There have been too many lately. Too many.
Yeah, and when people say it's because she's poor, I don't like that, because it's not. I'm a pattern thinker, so my brain scans all situations like a pattern. And so when I look at all of these suicides of kids ages, sadly, I have to say 11 or 10, up to, I'm going to say 21, most of them all, it varies so much in their economic status, in their social class. You have people who are living in trailer parks. You have people who are living in mansions. You've got children like who are middle class. You have children who are. I mean, it varies all over the globe. There is not there being poor a lot of times actually makes kids feel like they have to go out and try more, and it makes them feel like they have nothing to like it makes them feel like they can only go up from there, whereas some rich kids feel like, well, I've already got everything and I'm still depressed, so I might as well. It is not it is not limited to being poor or being rich, or that is not a common denominator. Now, her watching the siblings all day and stuff, I've heard that echoed, that definitely wouldn't help. Maybe the way she was living, but not because she was poor. You know, she wasn't, like, her bones weren't sticking out. It's not like she was anorexic, starving. There wasn't any indication that she had no food. You know, it wasn't like she didn't have clothes to wear. She had water to drink. She had the basic necessities, sibling bond. I'm not saying neglect wasn't going on, but there have even been kids in more poorer situations. I said more poorer, in poorer situations, who are now speaking out publicly as politicians and stuff. Like, people can't just chalk it off to being poor, because that's not the case. It was, the internet has so much to do with it. That is where Tony was correct. Very correct. The internet, when it comes to children, number one.
I mean, she would have been a child maybe 20, 30 years ago. She would have been a star. But you're exposed to so much with the internet that.
Well, it can be all consuming too. I mean, she was Googling images of the suicide forest, and that's not anything that should be staining the brain of a. I mean, those are the ages. 12 is the time when your fabric is being sewn as a person. You don't need to have images like that sewn in fabric.
Rachel, when you were like 30 years ago, if you're in Katelyn's position, you just grew up in that environment, and that was it. You didn't have access. You didn't see what was going on, 30, 40, 100, 1,000 miles from you. That was your life, and that's all you knew. But
right.
Katelyn, exactly. She knew, she could see what was going on outside of her life, and she knew she was worth more.
I was going to say that she had a very good sense of self-worth. That's why she would talk about, I love my eyes. I'm a great singer. And I'm glad she had that. But at the same time, because she was so aware of her worth, she knew what she deserved. And she realized that she deserved better. Not saying that she made the correct decision, but, a lot of times kids who don't have that self-awareness, they're less depressed, because it's kind of like how they say ignorance is bliss, and that's why they say a lot of times people with Down syndrome are some of the happiest people. Like, people laugh and say, we think we've got it better than Down syndrome people, but in the end, Down syndrome people are way happier because they're so much more blissful. They are not as hyper aware. Katelyn was very hyper aware, and I'm sure that when she's scrolling on the internet, I mean, so many of these girls who were her age on YouTube, and we know she was going on YouTube, so many of these YouTubers her age are living more extravagant lives than most professional adults. And I can't even imagine what that would be like in her position, scrolling and having to compare, even if she's not consciously comparing, just having to compare. Like,
yeah, and she was a smart kid, and just seeing that, and just, hey, I'm no better or worse than them, and look at the kind of life they're living. So.
Right. Well, my kids were getting really into, it's called Chase's Corner on YouTube, and I don't know if you know what that is, but this YouTuber, the dad, started it, and talk about pimping your kids, because that's kind of what I feel like he does, because, I mean, I shouldn't say that, because I think it started off wholesome, and then he just started getting a lot of views, and so that became his job, but it is very full-time for him, and anyway, he gets like up to, I'm not exaggerating when I say 10 million per video, 10 million views. And my kids were watching that a lot, and they started, after a week of watching it, they were like, why do they always get to go here? I mean, they were just in Hawaii, and now they're in Florida, and they got 3 Xboxes, and they got this, and they open up these. They do these challenges where they, you know, they'll get like 8 bags of M&Ms, and they'll do this, and they'll basically they waste a bunch of things, and it's so materialistic and it's so unrealistic, and the kids don't understand that they get paid to make these videos. And so I just was like, I don't want y'all watching that anymore because it's unrealistic. It's not healthy for y'all to, you know. And so really, it is so important. The monitoring is, and it's not like you have to hover over the kid. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. Like, I say that, but at the same time, it's really not hard to hover over your kid. Like, it's. I always tell my kid, okay, well then you don't either. I monitor or you're not on it, and they're like, okay, you can watch, because it's like they want to be on it regardless. So, I mean, in the end, you're the parent. You have the power to take it away or to watch what they're doing.
When you're a kid, you just don't understand. You don't understand. You think your parents just holding you back. Because I can remember watching when I was a kid. You'd watch the kids. They would think they were in a video game. And I think, oh, that's great. I want to be in the video game. Why won't my parents let me be in the video game?
Aww. Because we don't know what is best for us at that age, and it's okay for your kid to get mad.
You don't know reality. You don't know reality.
Yeah, and while Katelyn and people her age are entitled to some privacy, certainly, especially pubescent age, you know, even privacy has to be monitored and regulated. And that may sound like an oxymoron, like monitored privacy, but there is such thing. The whole computer in the den, for instance, or in the kitchen. Mine is in the kitchen. The way that works is, obviously, I'm not in the kitchen 24/7. So technically, if my son, for instance, is playing Roblox on there, I'm not hovering over his shoulder the entire time. But the likelihood of him going and Googling something inappropriate, knowing that somebody can come in and out of the kitchen at any second, really lowers the likelihood of that happening. Versus as if he's in a
Yeah, you know when your kid has privacy? When there are 0 electronics, when it's just him or her by themselves.
Exactly.
That's when they get privacy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, unless the friend is over, because if a friend comes over, I do have a rule about the door being fully shut and things like that. I mean, because he's 10. But, you know, even if he were 12, I would still constantly, you know, the child needs to understand that you can trust them, but at the same time, you still are in charge. Like, you have the right to come in whenever you want, to ask whatever questions you want, to take away whatever you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if a child doesn't think their parent cares, because my mom didn't care, and I just took, I pulled all the rope that was given, because that's what kids will do. You give a child freedom, they can't regulate freedom themselves. What was Katelyn to know? Oh, well, actually, I should probably leave this website because these guys are flirting. Yeah, right. Children don't know how to self-regulate. They're children.
It's not until they're older that they realize you were doing the right thing.
Right. And I feel like that's the biggest common theme in all these suicides is, and that to me could be the most preventative, is this. That was my first thought after the Katelyn stuff was, one, this attention shaming needs to end. People need to quit shaming people who are depressed online and talk about it online. That needs to end. Because if someone went to the ER with a broken arm, the doctors wouldn't look at them and say, oh, you just want me to pay attention to your arm. Yeah, well, the same should apply to a broken heart and a broken mind. Nobody should turn you down because they can't see your brokenness. If you're that cruel of a person, if it's that hard for you to help somebody, then you're the one that actually needs to go get help. But to me, that's the common theme is, one, don't attention shame, and two, sorry, my computer, actually I need to plug it in. And two, the computer monitoring. That's a huge, because if you look at the case, you always see the same thing. Once in a while, it'll say that it was only at school, but 90% of the time lately, you see where they said social media bullying. Well, guess what? I guarantee you that social media bullying could have come to a halt if the bully's parents were involved and if the victim's parents were more involved. And I don't want to blame the victim's parents, but I put more fault, of course, on the bully's parents. If I caught my children bullying somebody online, they'd be surprised if they got their little device back ever. So, I mean, of course, attention shaming and computer action, all the other stuff is more speculation. All the stuff that's like, well, yeah, she was watching the kids all day. Well, yeah, of course, that's not fun, but a lot of kids do that, and it's abuse, or some people consider it abuse, and they're still not offing themselves. This is something we all agree on from every group, from Tony to us to at people who aren't even involved online and just have discovered her through other sources. They all feel like, but if you watch Katelyn when she stormed out of the trailer, there was an interaction right before she did what she did that completely changed her entire demeanor. And the interaction had to have been online because there was nobody else there except her mother and her siblings. And her mother asleep? I don't know for sure, but I know that according to reports and from what I've heard, there was no fight with her mother beforehand. I mean, she had just watched Finding Dory. So
and I saw that a couple months ago on Netflix. It said Finding Dory. Watch it. Nope. Never gonna watch that.
Oh, but it's
never gonna watch it.
I like to watch it because I know that she liked it so much in my kids.
No, because that was the last movie Katelyn ever watched. I don't want to see it. It just breaks my heart. I can't watch it.
For me, it's like I'm reliving like what she saw. So it's like, you know, like I don't know how to explain, but I guess we all remember people differently, but
we just can't do it. Can't do it. Sorry.
No, I understand. I mean, the songs that she likes, if I play the songs that she used to listen to and talk about when I play them in the kitchen on the computer, it will make me teary-eyed sometimes. But it's like, I feel happy, though, when I'm hearing things that I know she liked. It's just, when I'm hearing sad songs, though, that sound like they could be about her, that's when I get choked up. Or if I watch children her age going far in life, that's when I get choked up. And it's not this, again, because people like to say we're using Katelyn. It's not her. It's not like we're using her as like an object. It's like what happened to her impacted so many people because we knew her through live streams. And because of people being moved by her, they're more willing to listen. It's not like we're like, oh, let's say Sarah Myers, I'm just making up a name, in an article killed herself. Okay, well, that just stands out as a number. I hate to say it, but when you just see a picture in an article, it's a number. It's like reading a dictionary or something. Yeah. Suicides or encyclopedia, rather. And when you actually...
we're talking about 30 hours here. That's a long time to get to know somebody. Yeah.
Right. And so it's almost like, I mean, really, the thing that was keeping us from like interacting with her, like, or knowing her on a personal level, is the computer screen. But we felt like we knew her. I mean, she was interacting with an audience just like how we are right now in front of a computer. She was talking to her phone the same way. So you feel
and
like...
I'm sure many of us, you, me, and many of the others that found her after the fact, we've sat there, we've watched her streams, and we're sitting there, and we're saying what we would have wanted to say to her at that point, and we can't. She doesn't hear us. She just sees what they said, and it's not adequate.
Right. And so why use some random people who nobody was impacted by? That's why I will talk about Katelyn, because people are like, they remember her. It's like, oh yes, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again? I mean, if you look in all of history, anytime there was a big movement or whatever you want to call it, It was when people were personally touched by something. And unfortunately, we're kind of selfish creatures. We have to really feel personally touched to want to make a difference sometimes. Not all of us, but most people. And so I don't see any negative to it's using her would be bad, yes, if like a sponsor came to us and said, "Hey, you know that girl who killed herself? Yeah, talk about her so that and we'll pay you this much money." To me, that there's a gross factor there for sure, but we don't do that.
We don't see her as that.
Never. And if somebody came to me with that, I would decline. That's not that isn't about progress. That's about self gratification. And people say too, like, well, what is justice? What is this? And I've talked about it before, but I'll say it again. It's basically prevention is what it is. It's prevention, and it's also the obvious, which is the recovery in her phone and really zoning in on who triggered her in her final moments. That's justice. Because that person has been yet to be held accountable. And so, and all of her family who, I could go on forever, but people also make excuses for the fact that the entire family was pretty much non-existent. And then people in that same debate group would say, well, people were coming in and out of the trailer. Are you blind? Did you not see? And with full of attitude. It was almost impossible to have a civil conversation with these people. They all need a hug, and it was like, okay, cousins coming in and out, aunts and uncles sometimes coming in and out. That almost makes it worse that they knew that she was having suicide attempts before her successful one, and they didn't do anything. And then great uncle Steve was saying, well, you know, what are we supposed to do? I thought CPS was going to do something. Well, here's the key word in all of this. I thought, well, why take a risk with helpless children? That's what I don't understand. If I had a niece or a nephew or a great niece or a great nephew and I lived as close in proximity that he lived to her, I would have no reason that I can come up with to not want to place my hand in that situation. At the very least, I would say, come on over. I mean, it would be, and I understand that, you know, intervening with Tammy wouldn't be, it wouldn't be easy, but at least trying to empower Tammy, or at least just letting Katelyn know, if I caught wind that she had committed suicide, I would have done everything to try to, I also would have mentioned about a phone. He did say he didn't know that she had a phone, and, you know, maybe that's true. But family, if that's all that the child has, they shouldn't just assume.
Yeah, and Matt is just baffling how somebody could just be 2 miles away and just sit there and play video games all day. I mean, I don't care how much you hate your ex. I've hated ex, but you have a child. That comes above all of that crap. You've got to put all of that hatred that you have for somebody aside for your child. Because your child is more important than any of that crap. So I never understood his bullshit. I'm sorry. It was bullshit. It was.
Yeah. In the end, children judge by action, not words, and they know if the dad or the mom, if they're not prioritizing them as the child, then that's ultimately how the parent feels, that the child's not that important. And it doesn't matter if the parent says, I love you. That doesn't matter. I mean, some people can't even talk. Yeah. So
Matt can cry for the rest of his life. That's not going to bring her back. You should have been crying before she left. Ugh.
Right. And it's the whole blaming the system. I got a comment. What was that man's name? I showed it to y'all. It was a really good comment. But he left a comment on it, on the video of Matt. And he basically just said, you know, look, I live in Georgia. And what this man is saying is not true. you know, it did take some effort, but I eventually got custody of my kids. And, you know, they were at first with the mom. And, you know, you just can't give up. You know, they're your kids. Like, so, and that's what I was trying to I was going to say to Tony is I actually get way more comments of people who don't even know that Tammy herself was a victim growing up and still was, but they are more in support of Tammy, and they actually are way less in support of Matt. It wasn't like that in the beginning. I want to say, like, after his first interview, people were more clinging to the fact that he was crying. But now I guess people have had more time to process everything. And the fact that Tammy has kind of been in hiding and in fear, and she's like had to internalize everything, and she herself has been suffering. And we all know what she had to go through and witness. To me, that shows more humility. Like the certain family members who are coming out and indirectly asking for all of this praise, this self-praise, that's less indicative of shame and regret. I would want to be in hiding. And if I weren't in hiding, the only thing I would have to say is I'm sorry to the world. I would just want to be like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't even know what to say.
Yeah. There have been certain people that have been putting their name out there and trying to act like they're something, and they're really nothing.
Right.
But it all comes back to, again, you know, what does it have to do with Katelyn? Again, what does it have to do with Katelyn?
Yep. No, that's true. Exactly. Should we take some questions from the chat?
Well, it's not a question, but Ron said the trigger was this SHIT society itself, in my opinion, which also makes millions of others feel helpless, victimized, or like outsiders. Take Native Americans, they've collectively suffered for over 500 years. When you say society, what specific, like,
Like just North American society as a whole, I'm guessing.
I kind of feel like this country, and I don't want to sound non-patriotic, I understand I'm in a first world country, I get it, I understand my quote privilege, I get all that, but I do feel like this country has a money worshipping problem. I feel like money will be our country's demise. I do, because I feel like our country puts money before people's health, before childcare, before education, before everything. I feel like it's just all about money. And the Hollywood, I don't hate Hollywood or anything, but I do feel like the influence of when you mix it with the media and the internet, it's just, I'm sure Ron would have a much more eloquent way of putting it. But I think, I always think, wow, what if I were Caitlin's age? Like, what if I was her age at that time?
Yeah,
Sorry?
Rachel, and there's Tony talking, and it's Tony, we let you talk. We let you talk continuously. Nobody interrupted you. You talked more than any of us have ever talked on any stream. So you have nothing to say.
You were like, I don't understand what, like, set him off. I still... Oh, he needs days to talk.
He talked a lot. He got a lot.
But I think back to, like, if I was Caitlin's age and I had all of the power to my fingertips that she did, because I'm remembering when there was first a computer put in my mom's playroom, and I was, God, I want to say I was 12, because that was before I moved in with Brandon. And the first thing I typed in, because this playroom was upstairs, it was far off, I typed in penis. And then I typed in D-I-C-K, and then I typed in gay, and then I typed in lesbo, and I misspelled a lot of it. And so I was horrified because my mom confronted me about it, and she was like, look, you can't, because I kept saying it was a pop-up. It was a pop-up, and she was like, Rachel, I could see where you hand typed it. And I mean, and that was back when it wasn't even Google. It was like ask.com or something. And I still, because my mom had an illegal cable box, I would sneak down, and when she would fall asleep, I would have my finger on the remote ready to turn it on Nickelodeon, but I would actually have it on porn, and it was the worst kind you could imagine. And this was when I was 12. And, you know, that's still, compared to nowadays, is nothing. Like, I saw gay porn, okay, and some wieners. But when you compare it to what I could have seen nowadays and all of the live interactions, I mean,
great.
I moved in.
You have access to everything now. That's the problem.
I had an AOL chat room access, and I really lucked out because when I was trying to find a place to live, there was a stripper who was actually, I lucked out too because she had 3 kids and she was stripping to earn her business degree, and she let me live with her for a little bit. And I met her in an AOL chat room because I was doing like Katelyn and crying and depressed and saying, somebody please help me, somebody please help me. My mom keeps putting me and my little sister out on the street, somebody help me. And she took me in, but again, that was just an AOL chat room. I lucked out, and I moved in with Brandon. But this was back in, I want to say like 2001 or 2000 or 1999. I don't even know. It would have been like 2001. I don't know, but it was not this time when you can go to Live Me and stuff. I cannot even imagine. I would have probably been sexting and doing embarrassing things that would have circulated, and I would have been like an Amanda Todd. I'm not even kidding, because when I got attention from boys, it was like, oh, you want this? Okay, you want this? And so I can't even imagine.
All you had were AOL Messenger and Yahoo Messenger. That was it back then.
Right. And it would, even that, you know, you could kind of test the boundaries, but it wasn't, I mean, there was, I had sent a picture, I'm not going to say what it was of, but it was when I was, gosh, how old? It was before high school. And my friends Stephen and Lori, they were like, Rachel, and they were the same. There was a guy named Kevin Ferguson who came from Nashville, knocked on my mom's door when I was 12 to meet me. He was trying to bribe me with Old Navy gift cards. And those same people, Stephen and Lori, they were my best friends. I lived with Lori for a long time. They were my same age. Stephen scared the guy away. But if it weren't for Stephen, who knows what would have happened? He had a hotel room. I mean, this was a common thing for me because I was so desperate. I would go to the internet. It was kind of like how she saw Luke. And I didn't look at the age as any big deal because I didn't know that it was a big deal. Unless the guy was like 50.
When you're that age, you don't know any better. That's the first, you're having your first experiences with people. So you don't know any better.
Right. Sorry, I'm just reading but you don't know any better. And so because of all this freedom, it really needs to be regulated. And the internet it's just dangerous if it's not regulated. It's just like with streets. If there were not rules on the streets, it would be dangerous. And, you know, someone would laugh if you just said, well, driving's dangerous. Well, actually, it's not. Well, why is it not? Because we have signs, we have laws. Would it be if there weren't? Heck, yes. Same goes for internet use. It's not dangerous. With moderation for kids, sometimes for adults, some of the stuff I've seen, I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine with kids. They also, like with the sexting, there's a lot of pressure involved where it's like, guys, I don't know if you saw this story, but that one YouTube guy got in trouble because he was getting underage girls. He was like pressuring them to he'd be like, bend over and wear a thong and dance for me and then send me the video. And then when they would say they didn't want to, then he would be like, oh, I thought you said that you were my fan on YouTube. And he would guilt them. And so there's also that pressure. And then the girl gets bullied because it circulates. And it's just, I can't believe that to this day it's not moderated. And I'm really glad Tony put emphasis on that because sometimes the conversations get lost in finger pointing of the family members. But that is so true. I can tell you for me, that had a lot to do with the bullying. A lot to do with the bullying. The Michelle Prophet, who was my prime antagonist, which is the reason I didn't go to high school, she was the one that passed around. I'm not even going to talk about what she did, and it wasn't a sexual picture. It was actually a picture that she drew of me in a cafeteria, and the teachers laughed. The teachers. I didn't want to look up, and the only girl I sat next to named Annalise, who I didn't even really know, just said, Rachel, I think that they're all talking about you. And I looked up, and that was it. I died on the inside. I never went back to school. But the birth of all that was from the internet. And I was ballsier online too. It was like the first I remember telling the girl when she was like, well, why does George like you? I don't know why. And I didn't even care for George, but I remember saying something like, well, maybe because I'm prettier than you. And I only said it to get under her skin. But oh my gosh, I did not realize the storm that was going to cause from then on with these bullies. And by the way, these bullies were the rich, snobby cheerleaders who, if you look at their Facebook pages right now, are still rich and snobby. So it's not, bullies are not always
great. You never tried to be a cheerleader. That's the thing. You could have been.
Do what?
Nothing. Wait, what? I don't know.
I couldn't hear you.
I didn't. No.
I was a cheerleader.
I said that Rachel, you didn't try to be a cheerleader. That was the thing.
Well, right. Well, it was kind of like a lot of these stories I've read about where it was like, I didn't ask for the attention from these boys, but these boys gave me attention, and these girls liked these boys, and so they would, instead of trying to attract the boys, they would go after me. And I went to the same school.
Jealousy.
It was from kindergarten up into like 7th, 8th grade. So these were the same people I knew. So when I was around these new people, closer to high school, it was like, wow, it's like people can be really mean, because I wasn't used to that in like my younger years.
Nice person.
My male teacher's boyfriend woke me up by trouser diving me. I told him I was going to break his hands if he did it again.
Rachel, you were a nice person, and you weren't prepared for the way that people were in reality. That's what it was.
Well, to me, that was almost like a first death. I feel like we go through many kind of deaths in our lives, like not actual deaths, but deaths of our innocence and spirits. Because one of my first deaths was realizing that people can hate their parents. That was before I actually hated mine. And I remember hearing other kids saying, I hate my parents, and thinking like, oh my God, people can hate their parents? That just shows how naive you are to your own abuse going on. And then the second death I want to say is when I saw teenagers being so cruel to each other in public. And I remember thinking, people are that, I don't want to grow up. People are mean. Like, people are mean. Like, they actually don't care if they hurt someone else.
It's disgusting.
And that's really Tony just told you I got F'd at 7. I'm a great person, Hog.
What?
He's telling you about what he went through.
I know, Tony. We gave you the floor, Tony, and nobody interrupted you, and then you got upset for no reason and left. So I don't know what's your problem. What is your problem, Tony? Tell us.
But, are you there, Courtney? Tony, you are not an F up. Okay, we have all effed up in life before, every single one of us. Like,
yes,
trust
but
me.
I have someone right next to me, so I've kind of been going in and out because of the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was in London in March. Yeah, it was March. And I watched a Canadian guy juggling chainsaws. You know that guy? He was in Covenant. It was in Covenant Gardens. You know that guy, Tony?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to know if he knows. A Canadian guy. He's probably your friend.
Mine or his?
Tony's friend. Canadian guy.
Well, Canada's close to here.
He was over by Trafalgar Square. It's over there in by Downing Street. That whole area. You know that.
What are you laughing at?
I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. No, it's a structural thing. It was fixed. Katelyn unfixed it. God unfixed it. It will be fixed again. What an asshole.
He's not laughing at you, I promise. I think it's easy to get people mixed up, like in writing or just hearing laughs, and especially when some of the people in Katelyn's community were drawn to her tragedy because of the darkness of it, like Cherokee so well said earlier.
Hug! You are an unsympathetic asshole. Okay.
No, I promise.
Oh.
How dark do you think I am? How dark do we think you are?
Nobody. We all listen to you. Every single one of us listen to you. Why can't you see that? I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
Ron said, this has broken us all to varying degrees. Yes, and that's why 2017 pretty much doesn't exist. It's like, wait, what was it again? Oh, the year of Katelyn? Because that's how I pretty much saw it. I mean, how can you really focus?
Yeah. 2017 was just like that. A blur.
And that's why I haven't, and I don't plan on, releasing the conversation I had with Anthony over the phone. Ian's heard it, and Courtney and a few other people, but in that conversation, he had the nerve to say, or maybe he honestly feels this way, I don't know, but he said, y'all didn't know her, we did. And it's like, okay, well, we actually saw what happened. He says he didn't see the suicide video. I don't know if I believe that, but we actually know, like, we saw her last breath. That's traumatizing. That's not something that a lot of people in their lifetime witness. It doesn't matter that it was over the internet. And
he said a couple of times that Katelyn was the best kid he had ever been around. Like, she was the best kid ever.
And then he would proceed and say,
there was no sorrow. There was no sorrow in his voice. There was no emotion.
No, except for when he was defending himself.
There was absolutely zero emotion in his voice.
I feel it would be the same way if, let's say Luke is sentenced for life or something. Hopefully that ends up being the case with data recovery on Katelyn's phone. Who knows? I don't know about life, but you just never know what he could be. He is, in my opinion, I deem him a criminal, so you never know. Criminals tend to break the law regularly. I feel like if he ever were to give a jailhouse interview, that he would be about as emotionless as Anthony. Or maybe even more.
I don't know. Luke didn't care about anybody. He got somebody pregnant. He was with several underage girls. He doesn't care about anybody. Let's not even talk about him. He doesn't give a damn about anybody. Zero F's given to anybody.
Except himself.
And
he knows
Ron
the damage
says,
he's doing.
Ron says, I cannot even recall almost all of what I was doing this time last year, other than learning about Katelyn. 2017 feels like a blur. Exactly.
Yeah, and I see it all too as a negative blur. It's almost like everything had just a darkness to it. Like the entire year, there was certainly more depression and panic attacks and all around just doom, gloom and doom.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no happiness in 2017. I just remember sitting there, and you'd be sitting there thinking about nothing, and then all of a sudden, Katelyn would pop into your head, and then the waterworks would just start.
I wonder when that will fade, because I mean it's 2018, and the song I posted in the groups today, that was one that it was from one of those anime movies, or not anime, but Ghibli movies, and it's called When Marnie Was There, and the song reminded me so much of Katelyn. But we all do that. We all are reminded of her throughout the day. He doesn't even they're talking about Anthony. Anthony has brainwashed his girls that Katelyn was sick in the head. Yes, and that was also verified in the phone conversation that they all heard. His daughters were in the room, and they were shouting at me, and understandably, they don't know me, and they're very young. They're like 10 and 10 and 13 or 10 and 12 or something like that, or 10 and 16.
Yeah, they were children. In fact, one of his kids is named Katelyn, from what he said.
I know one of them is Kylie, but anyway, they were shouting at me, and they were it almost sounded like, I don't know, but they are under the impression that it's all that Katelyn was sick, that Katelyn lied, and that it was Katelyn's fault, and like basically that it was just she is the sole reason that she's not here, and that there were no outside forces, and this is what they kept shouting out over and over. Which, you know, they're too young to understand, but when you're 12 years old, it's not a norm. You're not ever not wanting to live is not something that doesn't come from just your own whatever. There's an outside force. Before social media, you did not hear of even abused kids killing themselves.
Yeah, there's an epidemic going on.
And there's also the epidemic of social media. Those two came in at the same time.
Yeah, especially with young girls. I mean, it's young girls. You don't hear the same volume of young boys doing it.
And I think it's because girls are more competitive and catty. I mean, guys are competitive too, but girls, like the ones who bullied me, it wasn't boys. It was girl. I mean, there was one guy named Mike Klein who would call me Special K, like the cereal, like the flakes, because my hair would flake because I have psoriasis, and in front of the class, he would call me Special K. Yeah, that hurt my feelings, but that did not, you know, actually I can remember laughing about it and pretending like it didn't bother me. That was easy for me to ignore. It wasn't, though, the bullying that dealt with, that cut deep in the inside, was being called whore, slut, having pictures passed around in the cafeteria, having teachers involved with the bullying, having your voice not being heard, politics being involved in the sense that the popular girls got away with it. You know, politics of the school. They don't want to, you know, get the popular girls in trouble in the office. There's a lot of that. And so, yes, girls are cattier. They're more competitive. They're more sensitive. They're also more jealous. I don't hear of guys getting jealous as much of other dudes. It's kind of like, you know, they'll be like, oh, man, F him, you know, F him. But you seldom hear about guys.
With boys, yeah, you'd get the fight for maybe 10 minutes, and then you move on.
Yeah.
Girls hold on to a grudge more.
Yeah. They do. And girls are the ones who are being targeted by these guys a lot of times to show themselves sexually. And when you're at that age, if you don't have proper monitoring.
Yeah. Yeah, and girls get more jealous. You know?
Right. Like how many guys do you hear of who killed themselves because a penis picture was passed around? I mean, really, because girls aren't doing that to guys. And honestly, guys, it's not... Women, by nature...
Boys do it. See, girls have to... They're kind of coerced into sharing nude pictures. Males will just, without being asked, they'll send it.
Yes, no, it's true, but I even think if the dude's wiener was pressured to be shown and then they did, I think in the end they wouldn't care as much. I mean, of course there are exceptions, but I don't think they would care as much as a girl showing herself and it being publicized, because guys, if they're proud of it and they show it off, they typically don't care. Girls are typically more about modesty, usually. Sometimes, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, you rarely hear of like preteens and teenage girls, you know, putting themselves out like porn. Like, well, I guess sometimes they do, but they still wouldn't want their private part to be circulated. Courtney said Anthony needs to answer the charge of molestation, and yeah, police. That was something I wanted to talk about earlier. They questioned Katelyn and they questioned Tammy about what Anthony did to her when Tammy called the police. That's been confirmed, so people can't say that Tammy didn't do anything, because she did. Now, the question is, what did the police do? And the answer is nothing. I don't understand. I guess because it wasn't a drug bust, so they didn't immediately get some huge, like, monthly quota, like, met, money-wise, like, so the cops didn't see some huge monetary benefit out of it. They'd actually have to put forth effort and do further investigating. I don't know why. I just don't get it.
Yeah. There isn't a lot of money in a 12-year-old girl.
But there is so much emotional reward. You can be a hero for a child if you just listen to them sometimes.
Yeah, but Rachel, I mean, Tammy was in poverty. It's not like a rich girl that.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Like, that's how they were saying it. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? Then that's the case. Just be handed over to Atlanta. Because Atlanta they're way more competent, and Atlanta has a reputation for getting things done. They have more experience of dealing with real crimes, and they're more up to par in every way. They have way more advanced, up to date. I mean, these people in Polk County, the police force, they act like, I mean, when I've spoken to them just about the device on the phone.
I mean, it shouldn't be that way because Katelyn was richer than most human beings on Earth in personality and presence. But unfortunately, they don't give a damn about that.
No. I guarantee you, if it were a celebrity's child, or niece or grandchild or whatever, in Polk County, that happened to, Polk County would be all over it a lot more, because then they would feel like they were in the limelight, or they were getting more credit for their efforts. But because, like you said, it's just a poor girl, they don't care about the fact that this poor girl had all these amazing qualities.
And Tony was talking about that. Oh yeah, it's gone. The publicity, it's gone. Yeah, because she didn't have status, so to speak. But she is no less than any of those people.
Oh my gosh, no, she's more.
Yeah, exactly.
I guarantee you Katelyn could outsmart the police who interviewed her and Anthony and Tammy.
Yeah. She was the smartest person in her household. She was 12.
She is an angel.
No.
And do what?
You talking to me?
Oh yeah, I thought you said no.
No, hold on. I haven't even looked at your chat. I'm just looking at it right now.
Yeah, same here actually.
$150 a week would be real helpful. Car insurance is through the roof. Tickets have that effect.
Okay, y'all. I need to in this broadcast. I need to call Cherokee ASAP. You can. I need to.
What?
Yeah, I need to call Cherokee. It's pretty important. It doesn't deal with this. It deals with her health. So.
With Cherokee?
Yeah, in our group chat, I really want to check on her. I mean, she didn't say she's not okay, but I just want to check on her. So I'm going to
end the broadcast. All right, she can join the non-broadcast thing.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to end this now. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for Rod being here, and Cherokee, and Jenny, and you, and Tony. Did I miss somebody else?
I think you got everyone. Even Tony. I mean, Tony, thank you for saying what you had to say. I mean, you let yourself be known. That's good.
Yes. And maybe Benedict will come one day. Who knows? All right. Bye, everybody.